Her long braids swayed gently as she moved, catching the last rays of the setting Charleston sun. The Soul Food with Soul logo on the side of her truck gleamed, freshly polished, a testament to her nervous energy. "Girl, you're gonna wear a hole in that counter." Nina Reyes leaned against the truck's window, her high ponytail bouncing as she laughed. "And stop touching your earrings. They're perfect, just like everything else about you tonight." Veronica's hand dropped from her gold hoops, a gift from her grandmother. "I still can't believe I let you talk me into this blind date, Nina." She adjusted her Maya Angelou quote t-shirt beneath her vintage apron, smoothing invisible wrinkles. "Who even goes on blind dates anymore? People who deserve happiness, that's who." Nina's brown eyes sparkled with mischief. "Trust me, this guy is different. My cousin's friend knows him from the gym, I know." Veronica couldn't help but smile at her best friend's enthusiasm. "You've only told me 15 times." The setting sun painted Charleston's historic buildings in shades of amber and rose, casting long shadows across the brick-paved streets. Veronica's food truck, usually her sanctuary, felt somehow smaller as the clock ticked closer to 7. She'd parked it in its usual spot near Marion Square, close enough to her evening destination that she could walk there in her comfortable yet stylish boots. "Okay, final check." Nina pulled out her phone, its case adorned with vibrant flowers. "Reservation at Husk? Check. Flowers to bring? Check. Confidence of a queen who knows her worth?" She raised an eyebrow expectantly. Veronica squared her shoulders, channeling the strength her grandmother had instilled in her. "Check," she said, though her stomach fluttered. At 34, she'd learned to embrace her curves, her height, her beautiful dark skin, everything that made her uniquely herself. But dating? That was another story entirely. "Remember," Nina said, helping Veronica pack up the last of her supplies, "you're a successful businesswoman who makes the best mac and cheese in South Carolina. Any man would be lucky to share a meal with you." The truth in Nina's words warmed Veronica's heart. Her food truck wasn't just a business. It was her dream realized, built from scratch with recipes passed down through generations. Every dish she served carried memories of Sunday afternoons in her grandmother's kitchen, learning that love could be measured in pinches of seasonings and careful stirs. "What if—" Veronica began, but Nina cut her off with a fierce hug. "No what-ifs. Just be yourself. And text me everything later." Nina's bracelets jingled as she stepped back. "I mean it. Every single detail." After Nina left, Veronica changed in the small bathroom of the nearby coffee shop where she was a regular. She emerged wearing high-waisted jeans that hugged her curves perfectly, paired with a deep purple blouse that made her skin glow. The boutique flowers she'd bought, a small bouquet of white roses and lavender, trembled slightly in her grip. The walk to Husk seemed both too long and too short. Each click of her boots against the pavement echoed with possibilities. The restaurant's historic building loomed ahead, its windows warm with golden light. Veronica checked her phone. 6:55 p.m. Perfect timing. "Good evening," the host greeted her with a practiced smile. "How may I help you?" "I have a reservation." "Well, technically it's under the name William Porter." The unfamiliarity of the name felt strange on her tongue. The host consulted his screen. "Yes, table for 2 at 7. Would you like to be seated?" Veronica nodded, following him through the elegant dining room. The table was perfect, intimate but not hidden, near a window with a view of the historic street. She sat, placed the flowers carefully beside her water glass and waited. 7 o'clock came and went. 7:15, she ordered water, declining the bread basket. "He's probably just stuck in traffic." 7:30. The sympathetic glances from nearby diners began to sting. 7:45. She watched happy couples arrive, be seated, order, laugh together. 8 Mai. Her phone remained silent, save for one text from Nina. "Everything okay?" Across the street, unnoticed by Veronica, a tall figure stood in the shadow of an old oak tree. Carlos Merritt's grey-green eyes hadn't left the restaurant's window since he'd first spotted her walking in, head held high, flowers in hand. He'd been making a delivery nearby when he saw her, a vision in purple, radiating a quiet dignity that caught his attention immediately. Now, an hour later, he watched as she finally stood, leaving the untouched flowers on the table. The strength in her posture, even in defeat, stirred something in him. Recognition, perhaps, of a familiar pain. Before he could second-guess himself, he was crossing the street, stepping into the warm light of the coffee shop next door. Veronica emerged from the restaurant into the cooling evening air, her cheeks burning with a mixture of embarrassment and anger. She'd known better. She'd known— "Excuse me." The voice was quiet, deep, gentle. She turned to find a tall man holding 2 paper cups, steam rising from them in the evening air. His beard was neatly trimmed, his eyes kind beneath furrowed brows. "I saw you waiting," he said simply, offering one of the cups. "It's chamomile. Sometimes it helps." For a moment, Veronica stood frozen, pride warring with the unexpected kindness in his gesture. Then slowly she reached out and accepted the cup. "Thank you," she said softly, and meant it. They stood there in silence, 2 strangers sharing tea on a Charleston sidewalk, while overhead, stars began to appear in the deepening blue of the night sky. Morning light filtered through the windows of Veronica's apartment as she kneaded dough with practiced hands, working through the emotions of the previous night. The rhythm of folding and pressing the soft mass helped calm her mind, just as her grandmother had taught her. Her kitchen, with its collection of well-loved cast-iron pans and dried herbs hanging from copper racks, filled with the scent of fresh rosemary and thyme. Her phone buzzed again, the 15th text from Nina since last night. Veronica glanced at the screen, flour dusting her cheek as she tucked a braid behind her ear. "Girl, you can't just tell me some fine man bought you tea and then ghost me. I need details." Veronica smiled despite herself, remembering the quiet moment shared with the stranger. She hadn't told Nina everything, how his eyes held a depth of understanding that needed no words, or how his presence had somehow turned a moment of humiliation into something almost peaceful. The dough beneath her hands was nearly ready. She'd decided to make fresh biscuits for her food truck today. Comfort food was always good for the soul. As she worked, her mind drifted to the stranger's voice, low and gentle. "Sometimes it helps." Such simple words, but they'd carried more kindness than any elaborate speech could have. 2 hours later, Veronica pulled up to her usual spot near Marion Square in her food truck. The morning sun glinted off the freshly cleaned windows, and the aroma of southern comfort food already wafted from within. She tied her vintage apron, the one with hand-embroidered sunflowers, and began her morning routine, trying to focus solely on the tasks at hand. The breakfast crowd came and went, professionals in suits grabbing biscuit sandwiches, college students stopping for her famous hash browns. Each order she prepared with care, each plate a small offering of comfort to someone's day. This was her element, where she felt most herself, most confident. It was during the mid-morning lull that she saw him again. Carlos approached the food truck on his bicycle, looking somehow both imposing and uncertain. His grey-green eyes found hers immediately, recognition flickering between them. He wore a simple black t-shirt that stretched across broad shoulders, faded jeans, and that old military jacket she'd noticed the night before. A delivery bag was slung across his back. "Good morning," he said, his voice carrying that same gentle tone she remembered. Veronica felt her heart skip, but kept her voice steady. "Good morning. Hungry?" He stepped closer to the window, eyes scanning the menu board she'd hand-painted herself. "I've heard good things about this place. The owner apparently puts soul into every dish." A smile tugged at her lips. "That's what they say." She studied him in the morning light, noting the way he stood, alert but trying to appear relaxed, like someone used to being ready for anything. "Can I recommend something?" Carlos nodded, and something in his posture eased slightly. "I trust your judgment." Those 4 words shouldn't have affected her as much as they did. Veronica turned to her grill, glad for a moment to compose herself. "Give me 5 minutes." She worked with focused precision, selecting the freshest biscuit from her morning batch, splitting and buttering it with care. The chicken she'd fried earlier was still perfectly crispy. She added a drizzle of her special honey butter sauce, a few leaves of fresh basil, and arranged it all on one of her grandmother's old plates, the ones she saved for special occasions. When she presented the dish, Carlos's eyes widened slightly. "This looks like something worth stopping for," she finished, then added more softly, "Thank you for last night." He accepted the plate, their fingers brushing briefly. "The tea wasn't much. It was exactly what I needed." Their eyes met, and in that moment Veronica felt something shift in the air between them. Carlos took a bite of the biscuit sandwich, and his expression transformed. The careful control he maintained softened, just for a second, into pure appreciation. "This is—" He paused, searching for words. "This tastes like Sunday mornings should feel." The compliment warmed her more than any elaborate praise could have. "My grandmother's recipe. She always said food should feed more than just the stomach." Carlos nodded, understanding in his eyes. "She sounds wise." He took another bite, savoring it slowly. "I haven't tasted anything like this since—" He trailed off, a shadow crossing his face. "Since when?" Veronica asked gently. He was quiet for a moment, cleaning his hands with a napkin. Since before my last deployment. The words came out carefully, measured. Food didn't taste like much for a while after I came back. Veronica absorbed this information, recognizing the weight of trust in his admission. And now? Now. He looked at the nearly empty plate, then back at her. Now, I'm remembering what it's like to taste something real again. The morning bustle of Charleston continued around them, cars passing, tourists chattering, birds calling. But in that moment, it felt like they existed in their own pocket of time. Veronica knew she should be prepping for the lunch rush, but she couldn't bring herself to break this fragile connection. I'm Veronica, she offered, realizing they hadn't properly introduced themselves. Carlos, he replied, a small smile touching his eyes. I make deliveries in the area. Might have to adjust my route to pass by here more often. The biscuits are fresh every morning, she said, trying to keep her voice casual. In case you're ever in the neighborhood. He nodded, carefully placing the empty plate on the counter. Good to know. He paused, then added, thank you. Not just for the food. Veronica understood what he meant. Thank you for not asking too many questions, for letting silence be enough, for seeing me. You're welcome, she said simply. As he mounted his bicycle, adjusting his delivery bag, Veronica found herself hoping he would indeed adjust his route. There was something about Carlos, something in the way he held himself against the world, in the gentle way he chose his words, that made her want to know more. After he rode away, Nina appeared as if by magic, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Was that who I think it was, tea guy? Veronica tried to hide her smile as she wiped down the counter. Maybe. Girl, Nina leaned into the window, her expression delighted. The universe works in mysterious ways. First, it saves you from some loser who doesn't deserve you, and then it sends you a fine man who brings you tea and appreciates your cooking. That's not coincidence, that's destiny. It's breakfast, Nina, just breakfast. But as Veronica began preparing for the lunch rush, she found herself glancing occasionally at the street corner where Carlos had disappeared. The morning sun felt warmer somehow, the air sweeter, and for the first time in a long while she felt something unfurling in her chest, something that felt remarkably like hope. For the next 2 weeks, Carlos became as regular as the sunrise at Veronica's food truck. He'd appear on his bicycle, sometimes early morning, sometimes during the afternoon lull, his grey-green eyes always finding hers first. Each visit brought a new discovery, the way his shoulders relaxed when he took that first bite, how his fingers would drum softly against the counter when he was thinking, the rare but genuine smile that transformed his entire face. Today, dark clouds gathered overhead as Veronica prepared her signature mac and cheese. The humidity hung thick in the Charleston air, promising an afternoon storm. She'd just placed a fresh batch in the oven when she heard the familiar sound of a bicycle coming to a stop. You're late, she called out, not turning around. She could feel his presence, steady and warm. Had a delivery on the other side of town. Carlos's voice carried a hint of exhaustion. Rough day. Something in his tone made her turn. He stood there in his work clothes, but his posture was different, more rigid, his jaw tight. The haunted look in his eyes reminded her of that first night when he'd offered her tea and understanding. Sit, she said, pulling out the small stool she'd started keeping by the window. Give me a minute. She worked quickly, assembling a plate of comfort food, crispy fried chicken, creamy mac and cheese with a perfectly golden crust, and collard greens seasoned with love and memory. As she cooked, she hummed softly, an old song her grandmother used to sing in the kitchen. When she placed the plate before him, Carlos stared at it for a long moment. I don't think I can... Just breathe, she said gently. Start small. He picked up the fork, his knuckles white against the metal. Had a panic attack earlier, he admitted quietly. At the grocery store, too crowded, too many sounds. Veronica's heart ached. She'd suspected there were depths to his silence, scars that ran deeper than skin. You're here now, she said simply. He took a small bite of the mac and cheese, then another. Slowly, the tension in his shoulders began to ease. This tastes like what? Like coming home. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Veronica busied herself wiping down the already clean counter, giving him space to eat, to breathe, to find his way back to himself. My grandmother, she said after a while, used to say that food is medicine for more than hunger. That sometimes a person needs to taste love to remember they're not alone. Carlos looked up at her, something vulnerable and beautiful in his expression. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman. She was. Veronica smiled, remembering. She raised me after my parents died. Taught me everything I know about cooking, about life, about surviving with grace. Is she? She passed 5 years ago, but sometimes when I'm cooking her recipes, it feels like she's right here with me. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The first fat drops of rain began to fall, creating a gentle percussion on the truck's metal roof. Neither of them moved. I write poetry, Carlos said suddenly, as if the confession was pulled from him by the storm's electricity. Nobody knows. I fill notebooks with words I can't say out loud. Veronica leaned against the counter, drawn by this unexpected revelation. What kind of poetry? He pushed his empty plate aside, eyes focused on some distant point. About the war, about coming home to a world that feels too loud and too quiet at the same time, about— He glanced at her, then away, about moments that make me believe in peace again. The rain fell harder now, creating a curtain of water around the food truck. The street had emptied, leaving them in their own private world of steam and shared confidences. Would you— Veronica hesitated, then gathered her courage. Would you share one with me sometime? Carlos met her eyes, and the vulnerability there took her breath away. Maybe, someday. A crack of lightning illuminated the sky, followed by a thunderclap that shook the truck. Veronica jumped, instinctively reaching out. Her hand found his on the counter, their fingers intertwining before either of them realized what had happened. His hand was warm, calloused, steady. Neither of them pulled away. I should close up, she said softly, watching the rain create rivers on her windows. Weather's only going to get worse. Let me help, Carlos offered, standing but not releasing her hand. They worked together in comfortable silence, her showing him how to properly store ingredients, him helping her secure equipment. Their hands brushed occasionally, each touch sending sparks along Veronica's skin. The small space of the food truck meant they had to dance around each other, their bodies finding a natural rhythm of movement. When everything was secured, they stood facing each other in the dim light. The storm raged outside, but in here, time seemed to slow. I need to get home, Carlos said, but made no move to leave. In this weather? On your bike? Veronica shook her head. No way. I'll drive you. He started to protest, but she cut him off. My truck's parked right behind the food truck, and I'm not taking no for an answer. A small smile tugged at his lips. Yes, ma'am. They made a dash for her truck through the downpour, laughing as they got soaked in the few steps it took to reach the vehicle. Inside, with the rain drumming on the roof and the windows fogging up, the world felt impossibly intimate. Veronica started the engine, then turned to ask for directions. The words died in her throat. Carlos was looking at her with an expression that made her heart stutter, like she was something precious, something rare. Your braids, he said softly, reaching out to brush a wet strand from her face. They shine like copper in this light. She couldn't breathe. His hand lingered near her cheek, not quite touching, but close enough that she could feel its warmth. In the confined space of the truck cab, his scent surrounded her. Rain and leather, and something uniquely him. Carlos, she whispered, not sure what she was asking for. He drew back slowly, reluctantly. Right, he cleared his throat. Directions. As she drove through the storm-swept streets of Charleston, following his quiet instructions, Veronica felt something shifting between them. Each flash of lightning illuminated fragments of possibility. Each rumble of thunder echoed the beating of her heart. When she pulled up to his apartment building, a modest complex on the quieter side of town, neither of them moved to leave. Thank you, he said finally, for everything. Any time, she replied, meaning it more than she'd meant anything in a long time. He opened the door, paused, then turned back. Veronica, yes? Would you— He took a deep breath. Would you like to have coffee sometime? Not at your truck, just coffee. Her heart soared. I'd like that. The smile he gave her then was full and real, transforming his entire face. Tomorrow there's a place on King Street. I know the one, she said, smiling back. 3 o'clock? 3 o'clock. He stepped out into the rain, and she watched him until he disappeared into the building. Only then did she allow herself to press her hands to her cheeks, feeling the warmth there. Her phone buzzed. Nina, of course. Girl, did you close early? Everything okay? Veronica typed back with slightly trembling fingers. Everything's perfect. And Nina? I think I have a date tomorrow. The string of excited emojis that followed made her laugh out loud, the sound mixing with the rhythm of the rain and the echo of Carlos's smile in her mind. Veronica stood before her bedroom mirror, smoothing down her marigold-colored dress for the 10th time. The fabric hugged her curves perfectly, falling just below her knees. She'd chosen her favorite ankle boots, comfortable yet stylish, and gold earrings that caught the light when she moved. Her braids were swept into an elegant updo, a few strands framing her face. "It's just coffee," she told her reflection, even as butterflies danced in her stomach. But she knew it wasn't just coffee, not with Carlos. The morning rush at her food truck had been a blur of motion and distracted cooking. Even Nina had noticed, raising an eyebrow when Veronica almost put cinnamon instead of paprika in her signature spice blend. "Love's got you shook, huh?" Nina had teased, adjusting her own colorful headband. "I'm not in love," Veronica had protested. "I barely know him." But that wasn't entirely true. She knew the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled genuinely, knew how he always wiped his hands twice on a napkin before eating, knew the careful way he held himself, like someone carrying invisible weights. She knew enough to want to know more. Now at 2:45 p.m., Veronica pushed open the door to Kudu Coffee and Craft Beer, a charming cafe on King Street. The space was warm and inviting, with exposed brick walls and local art. The scent of freshly ground coffee beans filled the air, mingling with the sweetness of baked goods. Carlos was already there. He stood when he saw her, and Veronica's breath caught. He'd traded his usual work clothes for dark jeans and a deep blue button-down that emphasized his broad shoulders. His beard was freshly trimmed and his hair slightly damp, as if he'd just showered. But it was the look in his eyes when he saw her that made her heart skip, a mixture of awe and nervousness that mirrored her own feelings. "You look beautiful," he said softly as she approached. "You clean up pretty nice yourself," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. He'd chosen a quiet corner table, away from the main crowd but near a window that let in streams of afternoon light. Two vintage armchairs faced each other, creating an intimate space for conversation. "I ordered us water," he said, pulling out her chair. "But I wasn't sure what kind of coffee you'd like." "Let me guess yours," she said impulsively. At his raised eyebrow, she continued, "You strike me as someone who appreciates the classics. Strong black coffee, probably medium roast. No sugar, but not because you're trying to be tough, because you like to taste the true flavor of things." A slow smile spread across his face. "How did you—" "I'm good at reading people," she said, then added more softly, "and I've been paying attention." The waiter approached and Veronica ordered a café au lait with a hint of vanilla. Carlos, as she'd predicted, ordered black coffee. "So," he said once their orders arrived, "tell me something I don't know about you." Veronica wrapped her hands around her warm mug, considering. "I dance in my kitchen at night," she admitted. "When I'm testing new recipes or can't sleep, just me and Anita Baker, moving between pots and pans." The image made him smile. "I can see that. What else?" She paused, then decided to trust him with something deeper. "I still write letters to my grandmother, tell her about my day, my dreams, my fears. I keep them in a box under my bed." Carlos leaned forward slightly, his expression softening. "That's beautiful. Do you think she reads them?" "I like to think she does." Veronica took a sip of coffee. "Your turn. Tell me something I don't know about you." He was quiet for a moment, running his finger along the rim of his cup. "I can't sleep without reading first," he said finally. "Poetry, usually. It helps quiet the noise in my head." "What kind of poetry?" "Lately. Langston Hughes. There's something about his words. They feel like truth." He hesitated, then added, "I have one memorized if you'd like to hear it." Veronica nodded, touched by this offering of vulnerability. Carlos's voice dropped lower, meant only for her ears. "Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field, frozen with snow." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Veronica found herself reaching across the table, her hand finding his. His fingers intertwined with hers naturally, as if they'd done this 1,000 times before. "What are your dreams, Carlos?" she asked softly. He looked at their joined hands, then met her eyes. They got lost for a while after the war. Everything was just survival. But lately, he squeezed her hand gently. "Lately I'm starting to remember how to dream again." The afternoon light painted patterns on their table as they talked. Carlos told her about growing up in a small town in Virginia, about joining the army straight out of high school, about the way poetry had been his secret comfort through deployments. Veronica shared stories about learning to cook at her grandmother's knee, about the leap of faith it took to start her food truck, about the joy she found in feeding people's souls as well as their bodies. Time flowed differently in their corner of the cafe. Their coffee grew cold, forgotten, as they discovered each other piece by piece. When Carlos laughed at one of her stories, a real laugh that transformed his whole face, Veronica felt something in her chest expand and warm. "Can I tell you something?" he asked as the afternoon shadows lengthened. "That night when I saw you waiting at the restaurant, I'd finished my deliveries early. I was just standing there watching you, trying to work up the courage to come in. What stopped you?" "Fear," he admitted. "Not of you, but of everything. Of not being enough, of being too broken. But then I saw how strong you were, even in that moment of disappointment, and I thought, maybe being broken doesn't mean being unfixable." Veronica felt tears prick at her eyes. "We're all a little broken," she said. "Maybe that's what makes us beautiful, the way we piece ourselves back together." Carlos lifted their still joined hands, pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. The gesture was so unexpected, so tender, that Veronica felt it in every part of her being. "Would you like to take a walk?" he asked. "The Battery is beautiful this time of day." She nodded, not trusting her voice. They left the cafe hand in hand, stepping into the golden Charleston afternoon. As they walked, Veronica felt something settling in her soul, a quiet certainty that this, whatever it was becoming, was worth every risk. Near the waterfront, with the sun painting the harbor in shades of amber and rose, Carlos stopped and turned to her. "Veronica?" "Yes? I'm glad you let me buy you tea that night." She smiled, squeezing his hand. "I'm glad you were brave enough to offer it." They stood there as the sun set, two people learning to trust again, their shadows merging into one on the ancient cobblestones of Charleston. The weekend farmers' market buzzed with life as Veronica arranged her display of homemade hot sauces and spice blends. It was her first time setting up a booth here, an expansion of her food truck business that had taken weeks of preparation. The morning sun glinted off the mason jars, each one labeled with her grandmother's recipes reimagined. "This setup is fire, girl," Nina exclaimed, adjusting the banner that read, "Soul Food with Soul, a Taste of Home." She'd shown up at dawn to help, armed with coffee and unwavering enthusiasm. Veronica smiled, arranging the sample cups. "I just hope people like it as much as the food truck." "They will," a familiar voice said behind her. "How could they not?" She turned to find Carlos standing there, holding a bouquet of wildflowers. He looked different today, more relaxed in dark jeans and a grey Henley that highlighted his broad shoulders. The past few weeks of coffee dates, shared meals, and long walks had softened something in him. "You came," she said, taking the flowers. Their fingers brushed, sending familiar sparks through her skin. "Wouldn't miss it." His eyes held pride as he surveyed her display. "Though I'm hoping you saved me some of that Carolina Reaper sauce you've been perfecting." Nina watched their interaction with a knowing smile. "I'm going to check out the cheese vendor," she announced. "You two behave." As the morning progressed, Veronica found herself stealing glances at Carlos. He'd stationed himself nearby, ostensibly reading a book but really watching her work. She loved the way he interacted with her customers, quiet but present, offering simple observations about which sauces paired best with different dishes. He'd tried them all over the past weeks, becoming her most dedicated taste tester. The crowd grew as noon approached. Veronica was explaining the inspiration behind her grandmother's secret spice blend when she noticed Carlos tense. Following his gaze, she saw what had triggered him. A group of teenagers had knocked over a display nearby, sending glass bottles crashing to the pavement. The sound echoed through the market. Carlos's book fell from his hands. His breathing became shallow, his eyes distant. Veronica recognized the signs. He described his panic attacks to her during their quiet conversations. Without hesitation, she turned to Nina, who had returned with an armful of cheese samples. "Watch the booth?" Nina took one look at Carlos and nodded. "Go." Veronica approached him carefully, making sure he could see her coming. "Hey," she said softly. "Walk with me?" He nodded stiffly, allowing her to guide him away from the crowd. She led him to a quiet corner of Marion Square, beneath a massive oak tree. The sounds of the market faded to a gentle murmur. "Breathe with me," she instructed, taking his hand and placing it against her heart. "Feel that? Match it." Slowly, his breathing steadied. The rigid set of his shoulders began to ease. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I thought I was getting better at—" "Don't," she interrupted gently. "Don't apologize for this. Ever." He looked at her then, vulnerability raw in his eyes. "I wanted to be strong for you today, to support you. You are supporting me." She squeezed his hand, still pressed against her heart. "You're here. That's everything." A breeze rustled through the oak leaves above them. Carlos closed his eyes, letting out a shaky breath. "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever be whole again. You are whole, Veronica said firmly. Scars and all, just like me. He opened his eyes, studying her face. How do you do that? Do what? See through all my walls like they're made of glass. She smiled softly. Maybe because you let me. Little by little, you let me see you. He pulled her closer then, wrapping his arms around her. She melted into his embrace, breathing in his familiar scent. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other beneath the ancient oak. There's something I want to show you, he said finally, pulling back slightly. Tonight, after the market, if you're willing. Of course. They returned to her booth where Nina had managed to sell 3 cases of hot sauce. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of customers and conversations. Carlos stayed close, gradually relaxing back into himself. Veronica noticed how he focused on helping others now, carrying heavy bags for elderly customers, entertaining children while their parents shopped. As the sun began to set, they packed up the remaining inventory. Nina hugged Veronica fiercely, whispering, "Get it, girl," in her ear before departing with a wink. Carlos led Veronica to his bicycle, which was parked nearby. "It's not far," he said, helping her settle on the back seat. "Hold on tight." She wrapped her arms around his waist, pressing her cheek against his back. They rode through the twilight streets of Charleston, the warm evening air carrying the scent of jasmine and sea salt. Carlos took them away from the tourist areas, through quiet neighborhoods where massive oaks created tunnels of Spanish moss overhead. Finally, they stopped at a small community garden tucked between historic buildings. Carlos secured his bike and took her hand, leading her through a gate covered in climbing roses. "I volunteer here sometimes," he explained, guiding her down a narrow path. "When the noise in my head gets too loud, growing things, it helps." They reached a small clearing with a wooden bench. Above them, strings of solar-powered lights created a canopy of soft illumination. Raised beds full of herbs and vegetables surrounded them, their fragrance filling the air. "This is beautiful," Veronica breathed. Carlos reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn notebook. "I want to share something with you, something I've never shared with anyone." Her heart quickened as she recognized the notebook he always carried. His poetry journal. He opened it carefully, pages worn soft with use. "I wrote this last week after our walk on the Battery." His voice was low and gentle as he read, "In the kitchen of her soul she stirs hope like honey into tea. Healing served in cast-iron bowls, a feast of love made just for me. Through war-torn nights and empty days, I forgot the taste of peace, until her smile, like morning rays, offered sweet release. Now, in the quiet of her grace, I learned to breathe again, finding in her warm embrace a home I never planned. She doesn't try to fix my scars or hide them from the light. Instead, she shows me all her stars and makes the darkness bright." When he finished, silence fell between them. Veronica felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "Carlos," she whispered, reaching for him. He caught her hand, pressing it against his heart. "I'm falling in love with you," he said simply, "and it terrifies me." She rose on her tiptoes, cupping his face with her free hand. "Then we'll be terrified together." When their lips met, it was soft and sweet and inevitable, like coming home after a long journey. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. She could taste the truth of his words, feel the beating of his heart against her palm. They parted slowly, foreheads touching. Above them, the first stars appeared in the deepening blue of the sky. The garden around them hummed with night sounds, crickets singing, leaves rustling, life continuing its eternal dance. "Stay," he whispered. "Just stay here with me for a while." So they sat on the bench, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her, watching the stars emerge. No words were needed, just the quiet understanding that something precious and rare was growing between them, as natural and beautiful as the garden that surrounded them. In that moment, with the scent of roses and herbs in the air, and Carlos's heartbeat steady against her cheek, Veronica thought of her grandmother. She'd always said that love, real love, feels like coming home to yourself. Now finally, Veronica understood exactly what she meant. The pre-dawn quiet of Veronica's kitchen was broken only by the gentle sounds of chopping and the soft music playing from her phone. She moved with practiced grace between counter and stove, preparing for a special catering event, her first major opportunity to expand her business beyond the food truck. Her phone buzzed with a text from Carlos. "Can't sleep. Mind if I come early?" A smile touched her lips as she replied, "Doors unlocked, coffee's ready." 15 minutes later, she heard his familiar footsteps on the stairs to her second-floor apartment. He appeared in the doorway, looking slightly rumpled in his black t-shirt and jeans, his hair still messy from bed. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, telling her all she needed to know about his night. "Nightmares?" she asked softly. He nodded, moving to wrap his arms around her from behind, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. "Bad ones. But being here helps." Over the past month, they'd fallen into this rhythm, sharing early mornings and quiet moments, learning each other's patterns and needs. Carlos had become her unofficial sous chef, showing up before dawn when sleep evaded him, finding peace in the methodical tasks of food preparation. "Here," she said, handing him a knife and some bell peppers. "Make yourself useful." They worked in comfortable silence, moving around each other with the ease of dancers who knew their partner's steps. Veronica watched him from the corner of her eye, noting how the tension gradually left his shoulders as he focused on the repetitive motion of chopping. "Want to talk about it?" she asked finally, sliding a cup of coffee his way. Carlos set down the knife, wrapping his hands around the warm mug. "It was different this time. Not about the war exactly. I was trying to reach you, but I couldn't get through the crowd. Everyone was too loud, too close, and you were disappearing." Veronica turned down the heat under the simmering pot and moved to stand between his legs as he perched on the kitchen stool. She cupped his face in her hands, thumbs stroking his cheeks through his beard. "I'm right here," she said firmly. "Not going anywhere." He leaned into her touch, eyes closing briefly. "I know. It's just, the more real this becomes, the more I fear losing it." "Look at me," she insisted gently. When his grey-green eyes met hers, she continued, "We can't control everything, but we can choose to be present in each moment we have. That's what my grandmother taught me after my parents died, that love is stronger than fear." A small smile touched his lips. "Your grandmother would have liked me. She would have loved you," Veronica corrected, kissing him softly. "Now help me finish these prep lists. I've got 50 people to feed tonight." They returned to their cooking dance, but now Carlos hummed along to the music playing softly in the background, Anita Baker's "Sweet Love." The sound made Veronica's heart swell. A month ago, he'd barely been able to handle any kind of music. As the sun began to rise, painting her small kitchen in shades of gold, Veronica's phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. "Hello, is this Veronica Caldwell?" a crisp professional voice asked. "Yes, this is she. This is Amanda Walsh from Southern Living magazine. We're doing a feature on up-and-coming food entrepreneurs in Charleston, and your name came highly recommended." Veronica's hand tightened on the phone. Southern Living was huge, the kind of exposure that could change everything for her business. "I'm honored," she managed. "We'd love to do a photo shoot and interview at your food truck next week. Our photographer, Michael, will need about 3 hours of your time." "That sounds wonderful," Veronica said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Just send me the details, and I'll make it work." After hanging up, she turned to Carlos with wide eyes. "That was Southern Living magazine. They want to feature me in their next issue." His face lit up with pride. "Of course they do. You're incredible." But even as he hugged her, spinning her around the kitchen in celebration, Veronica felt a flutter of anxiety in her stomach. She'd always worked behind the scenes, letting her food speak for her. The thought of being in the spotlight, of being photographed and interviewed, Carlos seemed to sense her tension. "What's wrong?" "It's silly," she said, busying herself with stirring the pot. "I should be purely excited." "But," she sighed, turning to face him, "the last time I did any kind of photo shoot was for the local paper 3 years ago. The comments online, they weren't kind. About my size, my skin, my food being too ethnic for Charleston." Carlos's jaw tightened, but his touch was gentle as he tucked a braid behind her ear. "Those people don't deserve your energy. Your food isn't just food. It's heritage. It's love. It's—" he gestured to the kitchen around them. "It's this. All of this. And you. You're beautiful. Inside and out." Tears pricked at her eyes. "When did you get so good with words?" "I had a good teacher," he smiled, pulling her close. "A wise woman once told me that being scared doesn't mean you're not brave." She laughed against his chest. "Using my own words against me?" "Every chance I get." The timer dinged, reminding them of the task at hand. As they returned to their preparation, Veronica felt stronger. Carlos was right. Her food was her heritage, her story. And maybe it was time to share that story more broadly. The morning progressed, their efficient rhythm punctuated by stolen kisses and shared smiles. When Nina arrived at 8 to help with the final preparations, she found them dancing slowly by the stove, lost in their own world. "You two are giving me diabetes," Nina declared, dropping her bag on the counter. But first, girl, why didn't you tell me about Southern Living? I just saw your post. Veronica blinked. What post? Nina held up her phone, showing a local food blog's Instagram post, breaking Charleston's hidden gem, Soul Food with Soul, to be featured in Southern Living. About time this incredible black-owned business got the recognition it deserves. I haven't even confirmed the interview yet, Veronica protested. News travels fast in Charleston, Carlos said, squeezing her hand. Better get used to it. You're not hidden anymore. Looking between Carlos's proud smile and Nina's excited bouncing, Veronica felt a surge of courage. Yes, the spotlight was scary. Yes, there would probably be more unkind comments. But she had built something beautiful here. Not just her business, but this family of choice. Nina with her boundless enthusiasm, Carlos with his quiet strength, and her grandmother's spirit watching over them all. Okay, she said finally. But first, we have 50 people to feed tonight. Nina, start on the cornbread. Carlos, those peppers won't chop themselves. As they worked together in her sun-filled kitchen, Veronica felt a deep sense of rightness settle over her. Whatever challenges lay ahead, the magazine feature, the catering event, their individual demons, they would face them together. Later, as she watched Carlos carefully arranging flowers in mason jars for the evening's event, she remembered something else her grandmother used to say. Love doesn't make life perfect, baby. It just makes it possible. Looking at the man who had brought poetry back into her world, who showed up before dawn to chop vegetables and hold her hand, who faced his own darkness daily but still chose to bring light to others, Veronica knew that possibility was more than enough. The morning of the Southern Living photo shoot dawned bright and clear. Veronica stood in her food truck, every surface gleaming from hours of preparation the night before. Her hands moved automatically through the familiar motions of prep work, but her mind was elsewhere. Earth to V, Nina's voice cut through her thoughts. Her friend burst into the truck, carrying a professional makeup kit. You're not seriously planning to cook through the whole photo shoot, are you? Veronica looked down at her apron, already dusted with flour. I thought that was the point, showing what I actually do. Yes, but first, Nina steered her to a chair. We're going to make you camera ready, trust me. As Nina worked her makeup magic, Veronica closed her eyes, thinking about her conversation with Carlos the night before. He'd held her on her small balcony, watching the stars appear over Charleston's historic rooftops. I wish you could be here tomorrow, she'd said softly. I know. He'd kissed her temple. But some battles we have to face alone. Besides, his eyes had crinkled with that smile she'd grown to love. Crowds still aren't my thing. You've got this. Now, as Nina applied the finishing touches, Veronica heard a familiar bicycle bell outside. Her heart leaped. Done, Nina announced. Take a look. Veronica turned to the small mirror and caught her breath. Nina had enhanced her natural beauty without masking it. Her skin glowed, her eyes sparkled, and her lips shone with just a hint of color. You're a miracle worker, she said, hugging her friend. Go. Nina pushed her toward the door. Someone's waiting. Carlos stood beside his bike, holding a small package wrapped in brown paper. The morning sun caught the silver in his beard, and his eyes widened when he saw her. You look, he trailed off, seemingly at a loss for words. That good, huh? She teased, stepping closer. He caught her hand, pressing something into it. For today. Open it later. Before she could respond, a sleek car pulled up, and a team from Southern Living emerged. Amanda Walsh, the writer she'd spoken to on the phone, and Michael, the photographer, along with 2 assistants carrying equipment. Carlos squeezed her hand once more, then stepped back. I'll see you tonight, he promised quietly. Amanda approached with a professional smile. Veronica, let's make some magic. The next 3 hours were a whirlwind. Michael wanted to capture everything. Veronica cooking, plating dishes, interacting with customers. Amanda asked questions about her journey, her inspiration, her dreams for the future. During a brief break while Michael adjusted his lighting, Veronica finally opened Carlos's package. Inside was his poetry journal, open to a fresh page with a note. For when the lights feel too bright, remember the girl who dances in her kitchen, who makes love into sustenance, who carries generations of strength in her bones. Remember the woman I see, fierce and gentle, strong and soft, a universe of grace in human form. You've always been worthy of the light. See. Tears pricked at her eyes, but she blinked them back quickly as Michael called her back to work. Tell me about your grandmother, Amanda prompted as they moved into the interview portion. I understand she was a major influence. Veronica touched her earrings, her grandmother's favorites, and felt strength flow through her. She taught me that cooking isn't just about food, it's about legacy, about love, about healing. Every recipe I create is a conversation with her memory. And what about love? Amanda asked, her journalist's instinct sensing a story. Any special someone inspiring new recipes? Veronica thought of quiet mornings with Carlos, of poetry and pressed flowers, of hands steady with knives and gentle with hearts. Love, she said carefully, is like the best kind of slow-cooked meal. It takes time, patience, and trust in the process. The rest of the shoot flew by. As the team packed up, Amanda pulled her aside. This is going to be beautiful, Veronica. Your story, your passion, it's exactly what we look for. Would you be open to us featuring you on our digital platforms as well? Instagram takeover, maybe some video content? The old fear flickered, but Veronica thought of Carlos's words in her hand, of Nina's unwavering support, of her grandmother's lessons about taking up space in the world. Yes, she said firmly, I'm ready. After everyone left, Nina helped her reset the truck for the afternoon rush. So, her friend said, wiggling her eyebrows, what was in the package? Something perfect, Veronica replied, tucking the journal safely into her bag. The afternoon brought a steady stream of customers, including several who mentioned seeing the photo shoot. Word was already spreading through Charleston's tight-knit community. Veronica moved through it all with a new confidence, serving her grandmother's recipes with pride. As sunset approached, she spotted Carlos's bike again. He'd cleaned up after his delivery shift, wearing the blue button-down she loved. Their eyes met through the truck's window, and everything else faded away. Help me close up? She asked. They worked in comfortable silence, stealing glances and small touches. When everything was stored and cleaned, Veronica turned to him. Your words, she said softly. They carried me through today. He pulled her close, one hand cradling the back of her head. You carried yourself. I just reminded you that you could. She kissed him then, pouring all her gratitude and love into it. He responded with equal fervor, backing her gently against the counter. When they parted, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. Move in with me, he said suddenly. Veronica pulled back slightly, surprised. What? I know it's fast, he continued, his voice low and urgent, but I've never been more sure of anything. My apartment's closer to your regular spot. It has that big kitchen you love, and He took a deep breath. I sleep better when you're near, dream better. Everything's better with you. Carlos, she whispered, heart pounding. Are you sure? Your space is your safe place, your refuge. You're my safe place now. His hands framed her face. I know it won't be easy. I still have bad days. Still fight my demons. But if you're willing to try... Yes, she said, cutting him off with another kiss. Yes. Later that night, they sat on their balcony, sharing a plate of her grandmother's peach cobbler. The city lights twinkled below, and the warm breeze carried the scent of jasmine. I have something for you too, Veronica said, pulling a small key from her pocket. It was attached to a hand-painted keychain with sprigs of lavender. For the food truck, for mornings when you can't sleep and I'm not there. The kitchen's always been a sanctuary for me. Maybe it can be one for you too. Carlos took the key reverently, running his thumb over the painted flowers. I love you, he said simply. I love you too. She curled into his side, feeling his heart beat steady and strong. Above them, stars emerged one by one, witnesses to this quiet moment of trust and promise. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, moving boxes, combining lives, navigating new routines. But tonight, in the gentle darkness of Charleston's evening, they held each other and knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. Nina's response to their news came minutes later in a flurry of texts and emojis. Finally, now when's the housewarming party? And don't even think about cooking, it's my turn to feed you both. P.S. I expect a spare key too. For emergencies only, I promise. Veronica showed the messages to Carlos, both of them laughing at their friend's enthusiasm. This was family, she realized. Not just the one you're born into, but the one you build. Choice by choice, love by love, day by day. Moving day arrived with the kind of humid Charleston morning that made every box feel twice as heavy. Veronica stood in her half-empty apartment, surrounded by the remnants of her solo life, each item carrying memories. The morning light streamed through windows stripped of their curtains, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors. That's the last of the kitchen boxes, Carlos announced, wiping sweat from his brow. He paused when he saw her expression. "You okay?" She nodded, running her hand along the counter where she'd spent countless nights perfecting recipes. "Just saying goodbye. My grandmother helped me find this place, you know? First time I could afford my own apartment. She said it had good cooking energy." Carlos wrapped his arms around her from behind, both of them facing the sunlit kitchen. "Tell me about that day." She was so excited. Veronica smiled at the memory, brought her sage bundle to cleanse the space, said every new beginning needs a blessing. She leaned back against his chest. "I wish she could see this new beginning." "I think she can," he said softly, pressing a kiss to her temple. "And I think she'd approve of you bringing that good cooking energy to our place." "Our place." The word still sent a thrill through her. Before she could respond, Nina burst through the door, carrying what appeared to be a small jungle. "Your plants," she announced, "rescued from the back porch. And don't worry, I've already scoped out the perfect spots in the new place. The light is perfect for your herbs." Veronica laughed, grateful for her friend's ability to lighten any moment. "What would I do without you?" "Probably have a lot less chaos in your life," Nina winked. "Now come on, these babies need their new home." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of boxes, memories, and fresh starts. When they finally arrived at Carlos's, their apartment, Veronica was struck by how naturally their things seemed to blend. Her colorful cookbooks looked perfect on his industrial shelves. Her vintage posters complemented his minimalist art. Even their scents merged beautifully, her lavender sachet softening his sandalwood candles. "Last box," Carlos announced, placing it gently on the kitchen counter. "Your grandmother's recipes." Veronica opened the box reverently. Inside, dozens of handwritten recipe cards sat alongside her own notebook of adaptations and creations. At the bottom, wrapped in silk, lay her grandmother's old mortar and pestle, the one she'd used to grind spices for decades. "This needs a special place," she said. Carlos nodded, understanding the significance. He cleared a space on the kitchen's main counter, right where the morning light would hit it. "How about here, heart of the home?" Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. The Southern Living article had gone live. "Look at this," Nina exclaimed, already pulling it up on her tablet. The three of them crowded around the screen. The photos were stunning. Michael had captured everything. The love in her food, the joy in her work, the heritage in her recipes. But it was Amanda's words that brought tears to her eyes. In a world of trendy pop-ups and molecular gastronomy, Veronica Caldwell's Soul Food with Soul offers something more precious: authenticity. Every dish tells a story of legacy, love, and the power of food to build community. Her grandmother's recipes, reimagined with respect and innovation, remind us that the best meals feed more than just the body. They nourish the soul. "They got it right," Carlos said softly, squeezing her hand. "They saw you." The article was already generating buzz. Her phone kept lighting up with notifications, new followers on social media, messages from other food entrepreneurs, even a few catering inquiries. "This calls for a celebration," Nina declared. "Good thing I came prepared." She pulled a bottle of champagne from her enormous bag. As Nina popped the cork, Veronica looked around their space. Her plants finding homes on windowsills, her spices integrating with his tea collection, their books mingling on shelves. It felt right. It felt like home. Later that evening, after Nina left and the sunset painted their walls in shades of gold, they settled into their new routine. Carlos chopped vegetables while Veronica experimented with a new sauce recipe. Music played softly from her portable speaker. Anita Baker, of course. "What are you thinking?" she asked, noticing his contemplative expression. "About rhythms," he said, his knife moving steadily against the cutting board. "In the army, everything was about routine. Strict, unbending. After everything, routines became triggers. Too rigid, too much like then." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "But this is different. This feels like dancing." Veronica stepped away from the stove, holding out her hand. "Then dance with me." He set down his knife, taking her hand. They swayed together in their kitchen, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and new beginnings. His hand was warm against her lower back, her head fitting perfectly under his chin. "I never thought I'd have this," he admitted quietly. "After coming back, I convinced myself I didn't deserve it." "Deserve what?" "Peace," he said simply. "Joy. The simple pleasure of holding someone I love while Anita Baker plays in our kitchen." Veronica pulled back enough to look at him. "You deserve everything good in this world, Carlos Merritt. Everything." He kissed her then, soft and sweet, tasting of hope and possibility. When they parted, his eyes were suspiciously bright. "Getting philosophical over vegetable prep," he said with a small laugh. "Best time for it," she smiled, returning to her sauce. "Speaking of which, taste this." She held up a spoon, watching as he sampled her creation. His eyes widened. "That's incredible. What's in it?" "A new blend. I was thinking of calling it Homecoming, a mix of traditional soul food spices with some new elements, like us." "Perfect name," he said, stealing another taste, "though you might want to make a double batch. Nina's going to steal some the minute she tastes it." They worked together easily after that, their new kitchen dance already feeling natural. When the pasta was ready and the sauce was perfect, they took their plates to the small balcony. The Charleston night was alive with sound, cicadas singing, distant music from the street, the gentle rustle of palm fronds in the breeze. "To new beginnings," Carlos said, raising his glass. "To dancing in the kitchen," Veronica added. "To both of you finally getting your acts together," Nina's voice called from the street below. She stood there, grinning, holding up a bag. "Also, I forgot my phone. Let me up." They laughed, the sound carrying across the warm night air. This was what family felt like, Veronica thought. Not just the one you're born into, but the one you choose, the one you build with love and trust and second chances. Later, as they lay in bed, Carlos reading poetry while she scrolled through responses to the article, Veronica felt a deep sense of rightness settle over her. Yes, there would be challenges. Yes, some days would be harder than others. But here, in this space they were creating together, they could face anything. "Hey," she said softly, putting down her phone. "Welcome home." He smiled, setting aside his book to pull her close. "Welcome home," he echoed, and she could hear in his voice all the love and promise those simple words contained. The autumn breeze carried the scent of success through Charleston's historic streets. 3 months after the Southern Living article, Soul Food with Soul had exploded. Veronica's food truck now had daily lines around the block. Her catering calendar was booked solid through spring, and her social media following had grown exponentially. But success, Veronica was learning, came with its own kind of chaos. "Another email from Food Network," she muttered, scrolling through her phone while prepping for the morning rush. "They want me to compete on one of their shows." Carlos looked up from where he was grinding coffee beans, a morning ritual he'd started when his therapist suggested finding peaceful routines. "That's the 3rd offer this month." "4th," she corrected, running a hand over her braids. The silver beads her grandmother had given her clinked softly. They're persistent. The kitchen, their kitchen, had become command central for her expanding business. Recipe notes covered the refrigerator, while a large calendar dominated one wall, color-coded for food truck locations, catering events, and potential opportunities. Even at 5 a.m. it felt electric with possibility and pressure. "What does your heart say?" Carlos asked quietly, pouring their coffee into the handmade mugs Nina had given them as a housewarming gift. Before Veronica could answer, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a local news station wanting to do a feature on Charleston's rising culinary star. "My heart?" She accepted the coffee gratefully. "My heart says I'm scared. Everything's moving so fast. What if I lose the soul in Soul Food with Soul?" Carlos set down his mug and pulled her into his arms. She melted against him, breathing in his familiar scent of sandalwood and fresh laundry. "Remember what you told me last week, when I was worried about switching to the day shift at the courier service? That change doesn't mean losing yourself," she quoted. "It means growing into a bigger version of who you are." "Exactly," he kissed her forehead. "And you've got this. Besides," he added with a small smile, "I hear you've got a pretty good taste tester on hand." The moment was interrupted by rapid knocking. Nina burst in, waving her phone excitedly. "Girl, have you seen this? The Charleston food blog just named you chef to watch, and why are you two being cute in the kitchen when we have an empire to build?" Veronica laughed despite her anxiety. Between Carlos's steady presence and Nina's boundless enthusiasm, she felt better equipped to face each new challenge. "Speaking of empire," Nina continued, pulling out her tablet, "we need to talk about the restaurant offer." "Ah, that." A prominent restaurant group had approached Veronica about opening her own brick-and-mortar location. The proposal was generous. Prime location, creative control, significant investment. It was a dream come true, theoretically. "I haven't decided yet," Veronica said, turning back to her prep work. She had a big catering event that evening, a wedding for 200 people. "The deadline's tomorrow," Nina reminded her gently. "I know you're scared, but this could be huge." Carlos watched them both, his expression thoughtful. "Why don't I handle the morning prep? Give you time to talk it through." Veronica squeezed his hand gratefully. He'd become surprisingly skilled in the kitchen over the past months, finding peace in the rhythmic nature of cooking. His morning help had become invaluable as her business grew. She and Nina settled on the small balcony, the morning sun painting Charleston's rooftops in shades of pink and gold. Below, early joggers and dog walkers moved through the historic streets. "Talk to me," Nina said, switching from business mode to best friend. "What's really holding you back?" Veronica touched her grandmother's beads again, a habit when she needed strength. "The food truck. It's personal, intimate. I know every customer's name, their stories, their favorite dishes. A restaurant feels bigger, scarier, less connected. All of the above." Veronica sighed. "Plus, I'd need to hire staff, create systems, be more corporate. Or," Nina suggested, "you could create a family, train people who share your values, pass on your grandmother's legacy to a new generation. Think about it. You could mentor young chefs, especially other women of color, who might not get chances elsewhere." The idea struck a chord. Veronica remembered her own early struggles, the doors that had been closed to her, the strength she'd drawn from her grandmother's teachings. Inside, she could hear Carlos humming as he worked, some old country song he'd picked up in Virginia. The sound made her smile. He'd come so far from the man who couldn't handle music at all. "What does Carlos think?" Nina asked, following her gaze. "He says it's my decision, but he also left a poem on my pillow last night." Veronica pulled out a folded paper from her pocket. She carries generations in her hands, each dish a story, each spice a prayer. "Now the world sees what I've always known. Her light was meant to shine everywhere." Nina wiped away a tear. "Damn girl, he really is a poet. He believes in me," Veronica said softly, "even when I doubt myself." "We all do." Nina took her hand. "And whatever you decide, we're here. But for what it's worth, I think your grandmother would tell you to take the leap." The morning progressed in a whirl of activity. The catering prep took priority, with Carlos and Nina helping to pack equipment and supplies. But Veronica's mind kept returning to the restaurant decision. During a quiet moment, while Nina was out making deliveries, Carlos found her staring at her grandmother's mortar and pestle. "Penny, for your thoughts?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her waist. "I'm thinking about legacy," she said, leaning back against him. "About what it means to grow without losing your roots. And I'm thinking maybe it's time for the restaurant." She turned in his arms. "But I'm going to need help, more than just with cooking." His eyes softened. "What do you mean?" "Your poems. They tell our story better than any marketing ever could. And the way you find peace in the kitchen now, the way you understand the healing power of food." She took a deep breath. "Would you consider being part of it? Not just as my partner, but officially." Carlos stilled. "You want me to leave the courier service?" "Only if you want to. You could help with operations, write our story, create that peaceful space for others who need it. Like your community garden, but with food." He was quiet for a long moment, and Veronica felt her heart race. Had she asked too much? Finally, he spoke. "I've been thinking about making a change. My therapist says I'm ready for new challenges." He cupped her face in his hands. "And there's nowhere I'd rather be than building this dream with you." The kiss they shared tasted of possibility and promise. That evening, after the wedding catering was successfully completed, they sat on their balcony with Nina, sharing a bottle of wine and planning the future. "First," Nina declared, "we need a name for the restaurant." Veronica looked at Carlos, then at the stars above Charleston's skyline. "How about Coming Home?" "Perfect," they said in unison. As the night deepened and plans took shape, Veronica felt her grandmother's presence strongly. She'd always said that love multiplies when you share it, in food, in family, in dreams. Looking at Carlos and Nina, her chosen family, Veronica knew it was time to multiply that love again, to create not just a restaurant, but a home for all the souls seeking comfort, connection, and a taste of love made real. "To Coming Home," she raised her glass. "To new adventures," Carlos added. "To whoever's actually going to do all the paperwork," Nina finished with a wink. Their laughter floated out over the Charleston night, a promise of things to come. The evening before the grand opening of Coming Home, Veronica stood in the empty restaurant, taking it all in. The warm wooden tables gleamed in the soft lighting, each one adorned with fresh flowers in mason jars. The exposed brick walls displayed a collection of black and white photographs, her grandmother cooking, young Veronica learning to knead dough, Carlos in his community garden, Nina mid-laugh at the food truck. Their story, told in images and moments. The kitchen, visible through an open concept design, sparkled with new equipment alongside cherished old pieces. Her grandmother's mortar and pestle held pride of place on a custom shelf, surrounded by herbs from Carlos's garden. "Found this in the last box," Carlos's voice came from behind her. He held up a frame she hadn't seen in years, her first business license for the food truck, next to a pressed flower from her grandmother's garden. "I forgot I had that," she said softly, taking it from him. "It belongs here." He gestured to the small empty space on the wall, right by the host station, where everyone can see where it all began. As they hung the frame together, Veronica felt the weight of the moment. 6 months of planning, renovations, and preparations had led to this. Tomorrow they would open their doors to the public, not just a restaurant, but a dream made real. "Knock, knock!" Nina's voice rang out. She entered carrying a large box, her assistant manager's badge already proudly pinned to her shirt. "Final delivery from the food truck, though I still say we should keep it running." "One thing at a time," Veronica laughed. "Besides, she's going to a good home." They had donated the food truck to a culinary program focusing on disadvantaged youth, with Veronica serving as a mentor. It felt right, a way to pass on her grandmother's legacy of nurturing through food. "The staff all set for tomorrow?" Carlos asked, helping Nina unpack the last supplies. "Trained and ready," Nina confirmed. "That last team dinner really brought everyone together, though I think it was your speech that did it, poet man." Carlos ducked his head, still unused to praise. He'd surprised them all by becoming not just a partner in the business, but a natural leader. His quiet strength and understanding created a safe space for their staff, many of whom carried their own battles. "Speaking of speeches," Nina continued, "everything's ready for the private blessing ceremony tonight, just us three as requested." It had been Carlos's idea, to honor Veronica's grandmother's tradition of blessing new beginnings before the public opening. They'd planned a small ritual, just their chosen family, to set their intentions for the space. As the sun set over Charleston, casting long shadows through the restaurant's windows, they gathered in the kitchen. Veronica held her grandmother's sage bundle, while Carlos and Nina carried candles. "I'll go first," Nina said, lighting her candle. "I bless this space with joy, laughter, and endless possibilities. May everyone who enters feel the love we've poured into these walls." Carlos stepped forward next, his voice soft but steady. "I bless this space with peace and healing. May it be a sanctuary for broken hearts and weary souls, a place where strength is found in vulnerability." He pulled out a piece of paper. "And I wrote something for tonight. In this kitchen where love simmers slow, where broken pieces make something whole, we build a home for wandering hearts, a place where healing souls can grow. Through her hands, grace becomes sustenance. Through her love, strangers become family. In this space between yesterday and tomorrow, we create forever, one meal at a time." Tears slipped down Veronica's cheeks as she stepped forward, lighting her sage. "I bless this space with my grandmother's spirit, with generations of love cooked into every meal. May her wisdom guide us, her strength support us, and her love flow through everything we create here." She moved around the kitchen, letting the sage smoke drift into corners and doorways. When she returned to them, Carlos took her hand, and Nina completed their circle. "Together," Veronica continued, "we bless this space with our dreams, our determination, and our love. May coming home be more than a name. May it be a promise kept, a legacy honored, and a future built on faith and family." They stood in silence for a moment, letting the blessing settle into the walls. Then Nina, ever practical even in emotional moments, checked her watch. "Almost time for the surprise," she winked at Carlos. "Surprise?" Veronica asked. "Close your eyes," Carlos instructed gently. She heard movement, soft whispers, the sound of something being placed on the counter. When they told her to look, she gasped. On the prep station sat a cake, clearly homemade, slightly imperfect but made with obvious care. Next to it was a small velvet box. "Carlos," her voice trembled. He took her hands in his, and she noticed they were shaking slightly. "Veronica Caldwell, you taught me that love is like the best kind of slow-cooked meal. It takes time, patience, and trust in the process. You showed me that broken pieces can make something beautiful. You helped me find my way home." He dropped to one knee, still holding her hands. "In this kitchen that represents all our dreams, on the night before we open our hearts to the world, I'm asking, will you marry me?" Through her tears, Veronica saw that the ring was vintage, a beautiful Art Deco piece that reminded her of her grandmother's style. "It was my grandmother's too," Carlos said softly. Mom sent it from Virginia. She said it belongs with someone who understands that love is about nourishing souls. Yes, Veronica whispered, then louder. Yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Nina cheered and popped a bottle of champagne. Finally, I've been keeping this secret for weeks. They laughed and cried together, sharing the slightly lopsided cake that Carlos had baked himself, with only minimal help from YouTube, Nina stage whispered. Later, after Nina left, Veronica and Carlos slow danced in their kitchen, their first kitchen where it all began. Anita Baker played softly through the speakers, and the ring caught the light as they moved. I love you, she said, looking up at him, not just for who you are, but for who I am when I'm with you. I love you, he replied, for showing me that coming home isn't about a place, it's about finding where your soul can rest. They swayed together in the gentle light, surrounded by the blessing smoke and the promise of tomorrow. Through the windows, Charleston's stars twinkled like scattered sugar on dark velvet. Tomorrow, they would open their doors. Tomorrow, they would share their love with the world. Tomorrow, they would begin a new chapter. But tonight was just for them. Two souls who found each other on a rain-swept street, who healed each other with food and poetry, who built a home out of broken pieces and brave hearts. What are you thinking? Carlos asked softly. Veronica smiled, touching her grandmother's beads with her newly ringed hand. I'm thinking that some recipes are written in the stars. And this one's forever. They kissed in their blessed kitchen, tasting of cake and champagne and promises. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, in the space they had created together, love simmered like the best kind of slow-cooked meal, patient, tender, and perfectly seasoned with faith. Tomorrow would come with its own challenges and triumphs, but tonight, in this moment, they were simply and completely home, and that was the greatest blessing of all. 1 year later, the Sunday afternoon light filtered through the windows of Coming Home, casting a warm glow over the weekly tradition that had become known throughout Charleston as family dinner. The restaurant was closed to the public, but full of life. Staff members, their families, regular customers who had become friends, and young chefs from the food truck mentorship program all gathered around the long communal tables. Veronica moved through the space, her wedding ring catching the light as she carried a fresh batch of cornbread. Her white chef's coat had been embroidered with a special edition, a small sprig of lavender matching the tattoo she and Carlos had gotten on their wedding day. At 6 months pregnant, she radiated a different kind of glow, one that made her grandmother's beads seem to shine brighter in her braids. Easy with that tray, chef, Carlos called out, quickly moving to help her. His own chef's coat, a birthday gift from Nina, had Poet in Residence embroidered above the heart. The title had stuck after his weekly poetry nights at the restaurant, had become a local sensation, creating a space where veterans and others could share their stories through verse. I'm pregnant, not helpless. Veronica laughed but let him take the heavy tray. Her hand naturally found her growing belly, where their daughter, already named Grace after her grandmother, kicked in response to the kitchen's busy energy. Nina, now the restaurant's general manager and still their fiercest champion, was entertaining the crowd with stories from their early days. Y'all should have seen these two before they got together. The pining, the longing looks, the way he'd pretend he just happened to be making deliveries whenever she was cooking. Like you weren't orchestrating half those deliveries, Carlos teased, pulling Veronica close. The restaurant had exceeded all their dreams. Beyond the critical acclaim and commercial success, it had become exactly what they'd hoped, a sanctuary of love and healing. The staff included veterans referred by Carlos's support group, young people from challenging backgrounds, and aspiring chefs who needed a chance. Every morning began with meditation in the kitchen, a practice that had helped Carlos find his peace and now helped others find theirs. The original food truck, now run by their mentorship program, still made regular appearances at community events. Its new crew of young chefs learned not just cooking techniques, but the deeper lessons Veronica's grandmother had taught about love, resilience, and the power of feeding bodies and souls. Time for the blessing, Veronica announced, a tradition they'd maintained from that first night. Everyone gathered in a circle, holding hands. Even the kitchen staff paused their prep work to join. These Sunday blessings had become famous in their own right, with people saying they could taste the love in every meal that followed. Carlos cleared his throat and began to read from his ever-present notebook. In this circle of hands joined in grace, we celebrate the seeds we've sown. Love cooked slow, served with faith, teaching us all the taste of home. Through seasons of growth and change, Through meals shared and stories told, we build a legacy of hope and heart, more precious than any wealth or gold. For the child who dances beneath your heart, for the family we've chosen to be, for the dreams that brought us here, we give thanks, eternally. Veronica squeezed his hand, tears in her eyes. These days, everything made her cry, but his words always went straight to her heart. They had framed his wedding vows in their home kitchen, next to her grandmother's mortar and pestle. Nina raised her glass. To family, the one we're born with, the one we choose, and the one we create. To family, everyone echoed. As the feast began, a beautiful blend of soul food classics and new creations, Veronica watched her chosen family with a full heart. There was Nina teaching one of their young chefs her secret sangria recipe. Carlos deep in conversation with a veteran who'd just joined their kitchen staff. Their regular customers sharing dishes and stories, their staff members introducing their children to new flavors. "Penny for your thoughts," Carlos whispered, coming up behind her with a plate of her current craving, his special mac and cheese with extra breadcrumbs. "Just thinking about how recipes multiply," she said, accepting both the plate and his kiss. "How love grows. How proud my grandmother would be of all this." "She knows," he said simply, his hand joining hers over their growing daughter. "She's in every blessing, every meal, every moment of grace." Through the windows, the Charleston sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and rose. The herb garden Carlos had planted on their back patio bloomed with new life. Inside, laughter and love seasoned the air as richly as any spice. This was their recipe for happiness. Equal parts courage and compassion, folded gently into daily acts of love, simmered in tradition and served with open hearts. A recipe written in star-crossed moments and midnight dances, in poetry and perseverance, in the perfect blend of broken pieces made whole. Grace kicked again, strong and sure, and Veronica smiled. Another generation of love and legacy, already learning the rhythm of their kitchen dance. Another heart to feed with their special blend of soul food and soul love. This was their ever after. Not perfect, but perfectly them. And it tasted like home. The end. Based on this moving story of love, healing, and personal discovery, I'd like to ask a profound question for reflection. In the story of Veronica and Carlos, we see how small gestures of kindness, like a cup of tea offered to a stranger in a difficult moment, can completely change the course of our lives. What small gesture of kindness has someone had for you that ended up making a big difference to your personal story? Another overdraft fee, another night of choosing between buying Noah's antibiotics or paying the electricity bill. But tonight would be different, though she didn't know it yet. The empty 47th floor of Boston's Griffin Tower hummed with the quiet desperation of late-night corporate America. Yasmin's reflection ghosted across the floor-to-ceiling windows as she pushed her cleaning cart past rows of empty desks. Her long, straight black hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, her elegant features striking even in the harsh fluorescent lighting that made her rich ebony skin seem to glow. The navy blue uniform of elite cleaning services didn't quite hide her slender figure, though she'd carefully adjusted it for modesty. She paused, adjusting one of her knockoff AirPods. Taylor Swift's latest country single played softly, her guilty pleasure, one she'd never admit to anyone. The song almost masked the sound of frustrated typing coming from the corner office. "Don't get involved," she told herself. "Just do your job and get home to Noah." Her 7-year-old son would be waiting up again despite her texts begging him to sleep. He'd be curled up in his worn Spider-Man pajamas from Target, playing Minecraft on the second-hand laptop she'd gotten from Goodwill, pretending he wasn't worried about his mom working so late. The typing stopped, replaced by a string of muttered curses that definitely weren't meant for cleaning staff ears. Yasmin hesitated. She'd learned the hard way that some people didn't appreciate help from the help. But something in that voice, frustration edged with genuine despair, made her turn around. The corner office door was open, warm light spilling into the darkened floor. Through the glass walls, she could see a man hunched over a MacBook Pro, his expensive suit jacket discarded over a chair, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. Even in his distressed state, his athletic frame and commanding presence were unmistakable. Marcus James Owen, the nameplate read, CEO. Yasmin's heart skipped. She'd seen him before, of course, in company newsletters, striding through lobbies, his Asian American features and tall frame striking in perfectly tailored suits, but never this close, never this human. She should walk away. She had 3 more floors to clean before her shift ended at 2 a.m. Then 4 precious hours of sleep before her morning shift at Denny's. Yara would be home alone with her dark thoughts, and Noah needed his medicine. "Excuse me?" Her soft voice surprised even herself. "I couldn't help but overhear. Is everything okay?" Marcus looked up, and Yasmin's breath caught. His dark eyes were intense, even through his obvious exhaustion, his chiseled features shadowed with stubble that probably hadn't been there that morning. "I'm fine," he said automatically, then seemed to really see her. His expression shifted from dismissive to desperate in a heartbeat. "Actually, no. I have a board presentation in 6 hours and my laptop just crashed. I can't access any of my files, and IT isn't answering at this hour." Yasmin twisted her cleaning cloth between her hands. I took a computer course once, at the Tech Future Community Program. Maybe I could—" She trailed off, suddenly aware of how presumptuous she sounded. A cleaning lady offering tech help to a CEO, but Marcus was already standing, hope warring with skepticism on his face. "You know about data recovery. Basic stuff," she admitted, "but sometimes basic is all you need." He gestured to the chair beside him, and Yasmin felt the weight of worlds shifting. She should be cleaning, should be hurrying home, should be doing anything but sitting down at a CEO's desk at midnight. But she sat. The familiar scent of coffee lingered in the air. Expensive coffee, not the break room stuff she was used to. Marcus leaned close as she began typing, his cologne subtle but intoxicating. His Patek Philippe watch probably cost more than her annual salary, yet here he was, watching her work with the same hope she saw in Noah's eyes when his games wouldn't load. "There," she said after a few minutes of focused typing. "Try it now." Marcus reached past her to test the system, his arm briefly brushing hers. The files opened smoothly, his presentation intact. "How did you—" He stared at the screen, then at her, really seeing her for the first time. Yasmin stood quickly, smoothing her uniform. "Just a simple recovery trick. I should get back to work." "Wait," Marcus called as she reached the door. "I never got your name." She hesitated, one hand on the doorframe. Yasmin Foster." "Thank you, Yasmin Foster." The way he said her name made it sound like poetry. She nodded and slipped away into the darkness of the empty office floor, her heart pounding. It wasn't until she reached the elevator that she realized she was smiling. Her phone buzzed. A text from Yara. "Where are you?" "I can't sleep." Reality crashed back. Her 16-year-old sister was struggling again, fighting the same demons that had taken their mother. Noah needed his medicine. Bills needed paying. The elevator doors closed on the 47th floor, but Yasmin couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in her carefully balanced world. She just didn't know if that was a good thing or not. As she descended toward her normal life, Marcus Owen sat in his corner office, staring at his recovered files, but seeing only a pair of expressive brown eyes and a gentle smile that had just changed everything. Neither of them knew it yet, but that simple interaction, a crashed laptop, a quiet offer of help, a moment of genuine connection, would ripple through their lives in ways neither could imagine. Sometimes destiny writes its best stories in computer code and cleaning schedules, in midnight encounters, and moments of simple kindness. But for now, the night stretched ahead, full of possibilities and dangers, dreams and responsibilities, all balanced on the edge of a choice that had already been made. And somewhere in Boston, a little boy in Spider-Man pajamas waited up for his mother, unaware that his world was about to change forever. The fluorescent lights of Denny's at 6 a.m. had a way of making everything look both harsh and unreal. Yasmin's reflection in the chrome coffee maker showed dark circles under her eyes that even her careful makeup couldn't fully hide. She'd managed only 2 hours of sleep after her cleaning shift, her mind replaying that midnight encounter in the corner office like a scene from a movie she couldn't quite believe she'd starred in. "Order up for table 7. The cook's voice snapped her back to reality. 2 plates of Grand Slam breakfasts waited under the heating lamps, their edges already starting to curl, just like her tips would curl if she didn't move faster. Her phone vibrated in her apron pocket, another reminder about Noah's antibiotics prescription waiting at CVS. 4267 that she didn't have, not after paying for Yara's antidepressants last week, the same medication their mother had taken before. "Mom!" Noah's voice cut through her thoughts. He sat at the counter in his Washington Elementary School uniform, already showing signs of wear though the semester had barely started. His homework was spread across the Formica surface. She'd brought him to work after finding Yara had another sleepless night, too drained to get Noah ready for school. "Just a minute, baby." Yasmin called, balancing the plates with practiced grace. Table 7 was a pair of suited businessmen who barely looked up from their phones as she served them. Their watches caught the light, not quite Patek Philippe level, but enough to remind her of different hands, a different watch, just hours ago. "Mom, look." Noah held up his math worksheet, pride beaming through his gap-toothed smile. "Ms. Reynolds said I might get to join the advanced math group." Yasmin's heart swelled, even as it ached. Her boy, so bright, so full of potential, doing his homework at a Denny's counter because their apartment's electricity was spotty again. "That's amazing, sweetie. We'll celebrate with pancakes, okay? With chocolate chips?" His eyes lit up, so much like her own. "Half portion," she compromised, knowing she'd have to skip her own breakfast to make up the difference. "And only if you finish that worksheet." The bell above the door chimed. Yasmin turned, coffee pot already in hand, and nearly dropped it. Marcus Owen stood in the doorway of Denny's, his 6'1" frame somehow making the familiar restaurant feel smaller. His perfectly tailored grey suit looked out of place among the vinyl booths and sticky menus. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither moved. "Good morning," he said, and somehow those two words carried more weight than they should. "Good morning, sir," Yasmin replied automatically, professionalism snapping back into place like armor. "Would you like to be seated?" He nodded, following her to a booth. Up close, he looked as tired as she felt. His board presentation must have finished recently. Had he come looking for her? No, that was ridiculous. Rich CEOs didn't track down cleaning ladies at Denny's. "Just coffee, please," he said, then glanced at her name tag as if he hadn't spent the last 6 hours remembering her name. Yasmin. She poured his coffee with steady hands, though her heart raced. The morning light through the window caught his features, softening them. Without the desperate edge of last night, she could see the subtle signs of his heritage in his face. Proud cheekbones, dark eyes that held stories of immigrant parents' sacrifices. "Mom!" Noah called again. "Is 7 times 8 56 or 64? 56, Yasmin and Marcus answered simultaneously. Noah looked up, curious. "Are you good at math too, mister?" "Noah," Yasmin started, but Marcus was already smiling. "I like to think so," he said. "I used to help out at my parents' restaurant, doing all the calculations for inventory and expenses. Math became like a friend." Noah's eyes widened. "Did you have a restaurant? With fortune cookies and everything?" "Noah!" Yasmin felt her cheeks burn. "I'm so sorry, sir. He doesn't mean to." "It's fine," Marcus laughed, and the sound was surprisingly warm. "Actually, it was a fusion place. My dad's Chinese recipes mixed with my mom's Korean ones. And yes, we had fortune cookies, though my grandmother insisted they weren't authentic." Yasmin watched in amazement as her son and her CEO, no, not hers, just the CEO, fell into an easy conversation about food and numbers. Noah showed off his worksheet, and Marcus pointed out clever ways to solve the problems, his Forbes-worthy business persona melting into something more real. Her phone buzzed again. Yara. Skipping first period. Can't face everyone today. Reality crashed back. Yasmin needed to get Noah to school, pick up medications she couldn't afford, convince her sister to keep fighting battles she herself barely understood. "I should get back to work," she said softly. Marcus looked up, something unreadable in his expression. "Of course, thank you for the coffee." He pulled out his wallet, leaving a $100 bill on the table. "Keep the change." "Sir, I can't—" "For Noah's college fund," he said quietly, then louder. "Thanks for helping me with math, buddy. Keep working hard." Noah beamed. "Mum, can Mr. Owen come to my school's math fair next month?" The question hung in the air like morning mist, full of impossible possibilities. Marcus paused halfway out of the booth, his expression softening as he looked at Yasmin. We shouldn't keep Mr. Owen from his important work," Yasmin managed. "Right," Marcus agreed, though something in his voice suggested he wanted to say more. "Have a good day, Yasmin Foster." She watched him leave, the $100 bill burning a hole in her apron pocket. Pride warred with necessity, dignity with desperation. In the end, she tucked it away. Noah's medicine wouldn't pay for itself. The morning rush was starting, more customers filing in. Life didn't pause for moments of connection or impossible dreams. But as Yasmin moved through her familiar routine of coffee pours and order takes, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting, like tectonic plates moving beneath the surface of her carefully ordered world. And in his Tesla, driving away from Denny's, Marcus Owen found himself Google searching elementary school math fairs in Boston, wondering when exactly his life had started feeling empty of everything except board meetings and profit margins. and why a simple breakfast stop had filled some void he hadn't even known existed. The sound of breaking glass shattered the pre-dawn silence of the Foster apartment. Yasmin burst from her bedroom to find Yara standing in the dim kitchen, surrounded by the remains of their mother's favorite coffee mug, one of the few things they'd kept after the funeral. "I'm sorry," Yara whispered, her box braids casting shadows on her tear-stained face. I couldn't sleep, and I thought maybe if I made coffee like Mom used to." Yasmin's heart broke at the sight of her 16-year-old sister, wearing one of their mother's old Bath and Body Works uniforms she'd started sleeping in. The morning light hadn't yet breached their small apartment's windows, but the harsh glow of Yara's phone on the counter displayed multiple missed calls from her school counselor. "It's okay, baby girl," Yasmin soothed, carefully stepping around the ceramic shards. "We'll clean this up together." "No, it's not okay," Yara's voice cracked. "Nothing's okay. I keep breaking everything I touch, just like—" She cut herself off, but they both knew the end of that sentence. "Just like Mom." Before Yasmin could reach her sister, Noah appeared in the hallway, Spider-Man blanket dragging behind him. "Yaya, are you hurt?" The sisters exchanged a quick glance, years of protecting Noah's innocence kicking in automatically. Yasmin forced a smile. "Everything's fine, baby. Why don't you go get ready for school? I packed your Minecraft lunch bag already." But Noah, too perceptive for his 7 years, looked between them with worried eyes. "Is it because of the mean girls at Yaya's school? I saw on her TikTok—" "You've been on my phone," Yara snapped, then immediately regretted it when Noah flinched. "I just wanted to see your funny videos," he mumbled. Yasmin's phone buzzed, her morning alarm for her Denny's shift. In 3 hours, she'd need to be back at Griffin Tower for her cleaning job. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders like a physical thing. "Noah, bathroom, now. Yara, sit." Her voice took on the tone their mother used to use, firm but loving. "We're having a family meeting." Once Noah was out of earshot, Yasmin took Yara's trembling hands. "Talk to me. What happened at school?" Yara's facade crumbled. "They found my antidepressants in my bag during gym. Started calling me crazy girl on Snapchat. Said I'd end up just like—" She choked back a sob. "The counselor wants to have a family discussion about my concerning behavior." Yasmin closed her eyes, remembering similar meetings about their mother. The same concerned looks, the same carefully worded suggestions, the same helplessness. "I'll call out of work. We'll go together." "No," Yara pulled away. "We can't afford it. I saw the CVS notifications about Noah's medicine." "I'm not stupid, Yasmin. I know we're barely hanging on." Before Yasmin could respond, a knock at the door froze them both. Through the peephole, she saw their landlord, Mr. Patterson, shifting impatiently. "Ms. Foster, your rent check bounced." Again. Yasmin's chest tightened. She'd been counting on her cleaning job bonus, but after missing shifts to care for a sick Noah last week— "Just a moment," she called out, then whispered to Yara, "Get Noah ready for school. We'll figure this out." Opening the door just enough to slide through, Yasmin faced her landlord in the hallway. But as she prepared her usual litany of promises and explanations, an unexpected voice cut through the tension. "Is everything all right?" Marcus Owen stood at the stairwell, looking somehow both out of place and perfectly natural in the rundown apartment building. His casual clothes, designer jeans and a soft grey Henley that did nothing to hide his athletic frame, suggested this wasn't a business visit. "Mr. Owen?" Yasmin's mind raced. "How did you—" "I had some paperwork for you," he said smoothly, holding up a manila envelope. "From HR, about the computer assistance the other night." Mr. Patterson's demeanor shifted instantly at the sight of Marcus's Rolex and casual display of authority. "Oh, you're Ms. Foster's employer?" "Yes," Marcus said simply, but something in his tone made the landlord straighten. "Is there a problem?" "Just a small banking error," Yasmin interjected, pride warring with circumstance. "I'll have it sorted by—" "It's taken care of," Marcus said, surprising both of them. He pulled out his phone, tapping quickly. "I've just transferred this month's rent to the building's account, a bonus for Ms. Foster's exceptional IT work." Mr. Patterson's phone dinged, confirming the transfer. He retreated quickly, leaving Yasmin and Marcus in a hallway heavy with unspoken words. "You can't do that," she finally managed. "I can, and I did." His dark eyes held hers. "Consider it professional compensation. Your help saved me from a disastrous board meeting. I was just doing my job." "No," he cut in softly. "Your job was cleaning. You went above and beyond. Let someone do the same for you." Before she could respond, The apartment door opened and Noah bounded out, now dressed for school, but with his shirt buttoned wrong. His face lit up. "Mr. Owen, did you come to help with more math?" Marcus knelt to Noah's level, smoothly fixing his buttons while talking. "Actually, I was wondering if your mom had thought more about the math fair." Over Noah's head, their eyes met. In that moment, Yasmin saw not a CEO or a savior, but a man looking for something real in a world of corporate facades. "Still, we can't accept," she started. "Mom!" Yara's panicked voice came from inside. "The bathroom sink is overflowing." Reality crashed back like the morning's broken mug. Yasmin turned to deal with the latest crisis, but Marcus's hand caught her arm gently. "Let me help," he said quietly. "Not because you need it, but because sometimes the strongest thing we can do is accept support when it's offered with respect." Through the open door, they could see Yara trying to contain the water with their dwindling supply of paper towels, Noah offering his Spider-Man blanket as backup, and the morning sun finally breaking through their dusty windows. It painted the scene in shades of gold and shadow, much like their lives, beauty and struggle intertwined. And in that moment, standing in a run-down hallway between two worlds, Yasmin Foster faced a choice that had nothing to do with pride or money, and everything to do with trust. Sometimes the hardest walls to break aren't made of glass at all, but of the protective barriers we build around our hearts. The Griffin Tower employee break room buzzed with whispers that seemed to follow Yasmin like persistent shadows. Her cleaning cart stood forgotten in the corner as she stared at her phone, reading the email from Yara's school counselor for the third time. "Urgent meeting requested, concerning behavior, family support system evaluation." A burst of laughter from a group of office workers made her look up. They quickly averted their eyes, but not before she caught the words CEO and charity case floating in the air between them. Her reflection in the break room window showed her carefully maintained appearance, straight hair smoothed to perfection, uniform pressed despite the early morning wrestling with the broken sink, makeup covering the exhaustion of another sleepless night. But no amount of concealer could hide the weight of the morning's events. "Did you hear?" a young intern whispered too loudly to her friend by the coffee machine. He was seen at her apartment building. "Jenny from accounting says." The break room door opened and Marcus strode in, bringing with him the scent of expensive cologne and the sudden silence that accompanies authority. But today, instead of his usual purposeful walk to the executive elevator, he paused at the coffee station. "Yasmin," he said, his voice carrying in the quiet room, "do you have a moment?" She felt every eye on them as she followed him out, her heart pounding. In the relative privacy of the hallway, Marcus's professional facade softened. "About this morning," they both started simultaneously. A small smile tugged at his lips. "You first." "The rent money," Yasmin said quietly. "I can't accept it. I'll figure something out." Marcus leaned against the wall, his height making him seem protective rather than intimidating. "Would you accept a business proposal instead?" Before she could respond, her phone vibrated. A text from Noah's teacher. "Noah fell asleep in class again. Is everything okay at home?" Marcus noticed her expression change. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she said automatically, then corrected herself. "Everything. My son's struggling at school. My sister's counselor thinks I'm an inadequate guardian. My landlord's breathing down my neck, and now everyone thinks—" She cut herself off, realizing she was unloading on her boss. But Marcus's dark eyes held nothing but understanding. "What do they think, Yasmin? That I'm trying to— that we're—" She gestured helplessly between them. "Having a torrid affair where the CEO saves the poor cleaning lady?" His tone was gently mocking, not of her but of the gossip. "I think we're both more interesting than that stereotype." Despite everything, Yasmin felt a laugh bubble up. Slightly more complicated at least. "Speaking of complications," Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her an email. "The IT department is impressed with your handling of my computer crisis. They're looking for someone to train in basic tech support for after-hours emergencies. Regular hours, better pay, benefits." Yasmin's heart leaped, then plummeted. "I don't have a degree. You have experience and natural talent. The rest can be learned." He paused. "Think about it. Not as charity, as an opportunity you've earned." The hallway suddenly felt too small, too intimate. Through the glass walls, Yasmin could see office workers trying not to stare. "I should get back to work," she said softly. "Yasmin," Marcus's voice stopped her. "About the math fair. Noah mentioned it's this Friday." She turned back, surprised he remembered. "Yes, but I'll be there. Simple, definitive. Not as your boss." Not as anything except someone who thinks your son is brilliant and deserves support. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was the CVS pharmacy. Prescription ready for pickup. Foster, Yara, sertraline 50 mg. Balance due, $147.83. The same medication their mother had taken. The same battle playing out in a new generation. Marcus saw the color drain from her face. "What is it?" "I need to make some calls," she said, already calculating which bill she could delay this time. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Owen, but—" "Marcus," he corrected gently. "At least when we're not surrounded by gossips and glass walls." A commotion down the hall caught their attention. Yara stood by the security desk, her school backpack clutched to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "I need to see my sister," she was telling the impassive security guard. "Please, it's important." Yasmin was moving before she could think, Marcus right behind her. The security guard straightened at the CEO's approach, but Marcus's attention was on Yara. "Let her through, James," he said quietly. "She's family." That word, family, hung in the air, like a promise or a prayer. The security guard quickly issued a visitor's pass, and Yara flew into her sister's arms. "I couldn't do it," Yara sobbed. "They were all staring, whispering, just like they did with Mom. The counselor wanted to talk about residential treatment options, and I ran." Yasmin held her sister, feeling her shake. Through the lobby windows, she could see students getting off a school bus for a corporate tour, their lives so different from the reality playing out here. "Ms. Foster," the security guard started, clearly uncomfortable with the scene, but Marcus cut him off. "My office is free," he said. "Take all the time you need." Yasmin looked at him, really looked. Past the expensive clothes and corporate power, she saw someone who understood what it meant to carry the weight of family expectations and cultural pressures, someone who'd fought his own battles with identity and belonging. "Thank you," she whispered, meaning so much more than just the office space. As she guided Yara toward the elevators, Marcus's voice stopped her once more. "Yasmin, the IT position includes full health insurance for you and your dependents. Just think about it." The elevator doors closed on his words, reflecting back the image of two sisters holding each other up, while somewhere in the building, whispers continued to circulate about the CEO and the cleaning lady. But for once, Yasmin didn't care about the rumors. Because sometimes the most important choices we make aren't about love or money or even survival. They're about recognizing that strength doesn't mean carrying every burden alone. And sometimes help comes not in grand gestures, but in quiet offers of empty offices and filled prescriptions, in remembered math fairs, and gentle corrections from Mr. Owen to Marcus. Boston Rain had a way of making even the simplest decisions feel heavy with consequence. Yasmin stood under the awning of Washington Elementary School, watching parents with expensive umbrellas hurry their children to luxury SUVs while she waited for the public bus with Noah. Her Target umbrella had finally given up during last week's storm, and replacing it hadn't made the priority list. "Mum, look!" Noah pointed excitedly at his math fair project propped carefully under his raincoat, a complex pattern of numbers and colorful graphs that had kept him up late into the night. "Do you think Mr. Owen will really come?" Before she could answer, a sleek Tesla Model S pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down, revealing Marcus, dressed casually in a charcoal sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Need a ride?" he asked, then added quickly when he saw her hesitation. "It's pouring and I'm headed to the tower anyway." Noah bounced excitedly. "Mom, look at his car. It's just like in my video games." A crack of thunder made the decision for her. As they settled into the leather seats, Noah's eyes wide at the massive touchscreen display, Yasmin caught Marcus watching her in the rearview mirror. He'd clearly come straight from CrossFit, his hair still damp from a shower, a gym bag visible in the back. "You didn't have to do this," she said softly. "I wanted to," he replied, then turned to Noah. "So, tell me about your project." As Noah launched into an enthusiastic explanation of his mathematical patterns, Yasmin's phone buzzed. A text from Yara. "Don't freak out, skipped school again at the cemetery visiting Mom." Yasmin's heart clenched. The medication was helping, but some days the shadows were too heavy. She began typing a response, but another text came through. "I'm okay. Just needed to talk to her. Promise I'll be home for dinner." "Everything all right?" Marcus asked, catching her expression. "Just family stuff," she said, not wanting to burden him further. The rain intensified as they approached Griffin Tower. Noah pressed his face against the window, watching lightning illuminate the city. "Mom, can we show Mr. Owen my project before his important meetings?" Marcus caught her eye in the mirror again. "Actually, my morning is clear. I'd love to see it." They hurried through the lobby, past the curious stares of early morning employees. The security guard, not James this time, but a younger woman, did a double take at seeing the CEO escort a cleaning lady and a child to the executive elevator. In Marcus's corner office, Noah spread his project across the expensive conference table while Marcus listened with genuine interest. Yasmin stood by the window watching the storm while trying to ignore the whispers from passing employees. "This is brilliant," Marcus was saying to Noah. "The way you've connected the Fibonacci sequence to everyday patterns, that's college-level thinking." Noah beamed. "Ms. Reynolds says I could get into the gifted program, but—" He glanced at his mother, then dropped his voice. "It costs extra money." The silence that followed felt heavier than the storm clouds outside. Marcus looked at Yasmin, something unspoken passing between them. "Noah," he said carefully, "would you like to see something cool? Press that button on the wall. It controls the smart windows." While Noah played with the window settings, Marcus moved closer to Yasmin. "The IT position includes educational benefits for dependents." "Marcus, not charity," he cut in gently. "Investment in talent, both yours and his." Before she could respond, her phone rang. Yara's school counselor. Yasmin stepped into the hallway to take the call, her heart racing. "Ms. Foster, we need to discuss Yara's absences and recent behavior. Her latest writing assignment was concerning." Yasmin closed her eyes. "What did she write?" "A rather dark piece about following in her mother's footsteps. Given your family history—" "I'm handling it," Yasmin cut in, perhaps too sharply. "We're adjusting her medication and—" "Ms. Foster, without proper support systems and professional intervention, I'm concerned we may need to involve family services." The threat hung in the air like the storm outside. Yasmin's hand trembled as she ended the call. Through the glass walls, she could see Noah showing Marcus how to make a paper airplane out of a post-it note, both laughing as it sailed across the office. A hand touched her shoulder. Marcus had followed her out. "Bad news? They're threatening to involve CPS," she whispered, voice breaking. "Because of Yara's depression, my work hours, Noah's struggles at school. They think I can't handle it all." "You can't," he said softly, then quickly continued when she stiffened. "No one could. Not alone. I don't have a choice. You do." His dark eyes held hers. "Take the IT job. Let me help with Noah's gifted program. Not because you need saving, but because everyone needs support sometimes." Thunder crashed outside, and the office lights flickered. Noah pressed his face against the smart windows, watching lightning split the sky. In that flash of brightness, Yasmin saw everything clearly. Her pride versus her children's needs, her fear versus possibilities she'd never dared imagine. "I can't offer you charity," Marcus continued, his voice low and intense, "but I can offer you respect, opportunity, and—" He hesitated, then finished, "whatever this is between us." A commotion down the hall interrupted them. Yara stood there, soaking wet from the rain, clutching a dripping journal to her chest. Her box braids hung heavy with water, her Bath and Body Works uniform soaked through. "I went to see Mom," she said, her voice small. "I needed to tell her, to ask her." She swayed slightly, and Yasmin rushed to her side. "You're burning up," Yasmin gasped, feeling her sister's forehead. Marcus was already moving, calling his private doctor, ordering hot tea from his assistant, pulling a soft throw blanket from his office couch. The contrast was stark, Yara's wet fast fashion clothes against the expensive blanket, Noah's paper airplane landing on antique hardwood, Yasmin's cleaning uniform standing out against the executive decor. But somehow, in that moment, it all fit. Like Noah's mathematical patterns, like the rhythm of rain against smart windows, like the way Marcus's hand found hers without hesitation or judgment. Because sometimes family isn't about matching pieces, but about finding people who fill in your empty spaces. And sometimes love isn't about grand gestures or fairy tales, but about paper airplanes and borrowed blankets, about showing up in the rain and staying through the storm. The private medical clinic on Beacon Street felt like another world. Yasmin sat in a plush leather chair, watching Yara sleep on an examination bed that probably cost more than their entire apartment's furniture. Marcus's personal physician, Dr. Bennett, had just finished examining her sister, and now stood conferring quietly with Marcus near the window. "Severe bronchitis," Dr. Bennett was saying. "The fever's concerning, especially given her emotional state." I'd recommend observation for at least 24 hours. Yasmin's hand tightened around her phone, where an urgent email from her Denny's manager blinked accusingly. Third missed shift this month. Final warning. Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, working on his homework while sneaking worried glances at Yara. He'd insisted on staying, refusing to go back to school until he knew his Yaya was okay. His math worksheet lay forgotten beside him as he drew what looked like a family portrait, 4 figures standing together. Marcus approached Yasmin, his casual sweater somehow not looking out of place despite the medical setting. Dr. Bennett knows an excellent adolescent psychiatrist. She has experience with cases like Yara's. I can't afford insurance, he reminded her gently, if you accept the IT position. Yasmin looked at her sister's pale face, so much like their mother's in those final days. I can't leave her alone to work full-time. The position includes flexible hours and remote work options. Marcus sat beside her, close enough that she could smell his subtle cologne. Yasmin, look at me. She did, finding those dark eyes that seemed to see straight through her defenses. You're not alone anymore, he said quietly. Let me help. Not as your boss, not as a CEO, but as... He paused, searching for the right words. As what? She whispered. Before he could answer, Yara stirred, mumbling in her fever-induced sleep. Mum, I'm sorry. Yasmin was there in an instant, stroking her sister's forehead. Shh, it's okay, baby girl. I'm here. Mum always said we were stronger together. Yara's eyes fluttered open, glassy with fever. But I keep trying to be strong alone. Those words hit Yasmin like a physical blow. How many times had she done the same thing? Your mother was right, Marcus said from behind them, his voice soft but firm. No one should have to be strong alone. Noah appeared at Yasmin's side, holding up his drawing. In careful child's writing, he'd labeled the figures, Mum, Yaya, me, and Mr. Marcus. The room fell silent except for the soft beeping of medical equipment. Yasmin stared at the drawing, at this impossible family her 7-year-old had created, with Crayola markers and pure hope. Her phone buzzed again, this time a text from her landlord. Maintenance coming tomorrow for sink. Rent increase next month due to repairs. Reality crashed back like a wave. I need to make some calls, she said, standing quickly. The Denny's shift, the landlord, already handled. Marcus said quietly. Your manager agreed to medical leave and I spoke with Mr. Patterson about the repairs. You can't keep fixing everything, Yasmin protested, but her voice lacked conviction. No, he agreed, but I can stand beside you while you fix things yourself. Dr. Bennett returned with test results and prescriptions, explaining treatment plans that made Yasmin's head spin. But Marcus took notes on his phone, asking questions about drug interactions and therapy options. There's an excellent residential treatment facility, Dr. Bennett began, but Yara's monitors immediately spiked. No, Yasmin said firmly. We stay together. There are other options, Marcus interjected smoothly. Outpatient programs, home care support. Noah tugged at Yasmin's sleeve. Mum, can we show Mr. Marcus our special hot chocolate? The one that makes Yaya feel better? The simple request cut through the medical jargon and adult complications. Yasmin looked at her son, really looked at him. Despite everything, he still believed in the healing power of Swiss Miss with extra marshmallows and love. Special hot chocolate? Marcus asked, a smile tugging at his lips. Mom put cinnamon in it, Noah explained seriously, and whipped cream when we can afford it. It's magic. Magic hot chocolate does sound better than this. Yara managed a weak smile, the first real one in days. Marcus checked his Rolex. I know a place that makes excellent hot chocolate, and they deliver. Marcus, Yasmin started, but he held up a hand. Not everything is about money or help or fixing things, he said. Sometimes it's just about hot chocolate and being together. Dr. Bennett cleared her throat. The fever's stabilizing. With proper medication and rest. She glanced at Marcus, then added, perhaps home care would be best for now. Yasmin felt tears threatening. Home. They could go home. But home meant bills and work and... One step at a time, Marcus said softly, as if reading her thoughts. Today, we focus on getting Yara better. Tomorrow, he hesitated, then continued. Tomorrow, we can talk about everything else, including this. He gestured between them, acknowledging the unspoken thing that had been growing since that late-night computer repair. Noah held up his drawing again. Can we put this on the fridge? Next to my math test? Yasmin looked at the picture. 4 people, drawn in bright colors, standing together against a crayon blue sky. No class distinctions, no complications, just family. Yes, she found herself saying. Yes, we can. Through the clinic's windows, Boston's skyline glittered in the aftermath of the storm. Griffin Tower stood among the other buildings, where just hours ago everything had seemed impossible. Now, watching Marcus order hot chocolate while Noah explained the exact right number of marshmallows needed for magic, while Yara dozed peacefully under the expensive clinic blankets, Yasmin felt something shift inside her. Because sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting alone, it's letting someone else help carry the weight. And sometimes family isn't what you're born into or what you've lost, but what you build from the broken pieces, one cup of hot chocolate at a time. The IT department's orientation room felt surreal at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning. Yasmin sat at a sleek computer terminal, her cleaned and pressed business casual outfit from Target, feeling both foreign and empowering. Her employee badge, no longer marked cleaning services but IT support, caught the morning light, making the change feel suddenly, startlingly real. Mrs. Foster, the IT director, a woman in her 50s named Janet Maxwell, placed a stack of training manuals beside her. We'll start with basic systems overview, then. Ms., Yasmin corrected gently. And please, call me Yasmin. Her phone buzzed silently in her new work bag. A sophisticated leather tote Marcus had insisted was standard office equipment. A text from Yara. First therapy session done. Dr. Rivera is actually cool. She has BTS posters in her office. Relief flooded through her. After a week of recovery at home, Yara had finally agreed to try therapy, but only after a long video call with Dr. Rivera, where the therapist had connected with her over K-pop and TikTok trends. Your technical foundation is impressive, Janet was saying, reviewing Yasmin's preliminary assessment. That night with Mr. Owen's computer showed real problem-solving skills. Yasmin's cheeks warmed, remembering how that late-night encounter had changed everything. Now, 2 weeks later, her life looked dramatically different. Yara was getting help. Noah was enrolled in the gifted program, and she was sitting in an office instead of cleaning it. A knock at the door made them both look up. Marcus stood there, casual in his Friday office attire. No tie, sleeves rolled up, showing the subtle strength of his forearms. Sorry to interrupt, he said, though his smile suggested he wasn't sorry at all. Just wanted to make sure everything's going smoothly. Janet beamed. Mr. Owen, yes, we were just getting started. Yasmin's preliminary scores are excellent. I'm not surprised, he said, his eyes meeting Yasmin's with warmth that had nothing to do with professional assessment. Her phone buzzed again. Noah this time. Mom, I got an A+ on my science project. Mr. Marcus's idea about solar panels worked. The past 2 weeks had been full of such moments, Marcus helping Noah with homework over FaceTime, sending Yara encouraging texts about her therapy, appearing with coffee just when Yasmin needed it most. Small gestures that meant everything. We should grab lunch, he said casually, to discuss your training schedule. Janet's knowing smile suggested she saw right through the professional pretense, but her warm expression held no judgment, only understanding. I have plans, Yasmin said reluctantly. Yara's therapy appointment, then Noah's parent-teacher conference. No, I know, Marcus smiled. That's why I had lunch delivered to Dr. Rivera's office. We can all eat together after Yara's session. Before Yasmin could respond, another IT employee burst in. Server crisis on 32, the trading system is down. Janet jumped up, but Marcus held up a hand. Perfect training opportunity. Yasmin? She felt everyone's eyes on her. The CEO, the IT director, the panicked employee. 2 weeks ago, she would have shrunk under such attention. But now, let me take a look, she said, following them to the elevator with confident steps. The 32nd floor was chaos. Traders shouted into phones, technicians huddled around terminals, and the air crackled with panic. Yasmin approached the main server bank, her mind already racing through possibilities. The system's rejecting all connections, a tech explained. We've tried... Wait, Yasmin interrupted, spotting something familiar in the code scrolling across the screen. I've seen this before in my Tech Future course. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, drawing on knowledge she'd thought long forgotten. The room fell silent, except for the click of keys and her soft muttering. There, she said finally. Try it now. Screens flickered, then came alive. The trading system rebooted, and a cheer went up across the floor. Janet stared at her in amazement. How did you... Sometimes the simplest solutions get overlooked, Yasmin explained. Basic programming often works better than complicated fixes. She felt Marcus's presence behind her, solid and supportive. "Like life," he said softly, for her ears only. Her phone chimed, a reminder for Yara's appointment. The contrast struck her. Minutes ago solving $1 million trading crisis, now rushing to make sure her sister didn't miss therapy. "Go," Marcus said, reading her expression. "Janet can handle the paperwork. Family comes first." That word, family, didn't feel strange anymore when he said it. In the elevator, Yasmin caught her reflection in the polished doors. The woman staring back wasn't just a cleaning lady or a single mother or even an IT trainee. She was all of those things and more. Her phone buzzed one last time. A text from Marcus. "Proud of you, all of you. Don't forget Noah's favorite hot chocolate for after his conference." She smiled, remembering their first real conversation about his parents' restaurant, about understanding the value of hard work and the importance of dreams. Now here she was, living a dream she'd never dared to have. The elevator opened on the lobby, and Yasmin stepped out with her head high. Employees who once barely noticed her now nodded in greeting. The security guard, James today, gave her a respectful "Ms. Foster" as she passed. Outside, Boston's spring sunshine painted everything in shades of possibility. Her new life stretched before her like an open road, not easier perhaps, but filled with support and hope, and her heart skipped as she spotted Marcus waiting by his Tesla, 2 cups of premium hot chocolate in hand. "Thought you might want company," he said simply. And standing there between her past and her future, Yasmin realized something profound. Sometimes the biggest changes don't come from grand gestures or dramatic moments, but from simple choices made with courage and love. Because transformation isn't always about leaving everything behind. Sometimes it's about bringing the best parts of your past into a future you never thought possible. And sometimes the strongest foundations are built not on corporate success or social status, but on hot chocolate promises and the quiet understanding that you don't have to face any challenge alone. The headline on the business news website glared from Yasmin's computer screen: "Griffin Tower CEO Marcus Owen's personal life under scrutiny. Sources question recent HR decisions." Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the article, each word hitting like a physical blow. Anonymous sources questioning her rapid promotion, suggesting impropriety, drawing parallels to other corporate scandals. Worse were the comments section, where speculation about their relationship turned ugly and personal. Her phone lit up with a text from Marcus. "Don't read the news, it's nothing, we'll handle it." But it wasn't nothing. The careful balance they'd built over the past month, her new IT career, Yara's therapy progress, Noah's flourishing in the gifted program, and their quietly growing relationship, suddenly felt fragile as glass. A knock at her office door made her jump. Janet stood there, her usually warm expression worried. "Yasmin, the board's called an emergency meeting. They're asking questions." "About me," Yasmin said quietly. It wasn't a question. Her computer chimed with an urgent email. Noah's gifted program coordinator, concerning comments from other parents regarding scholarship funding sources. Meeting requested. The walls seemed to close in. Everything they'd built was being questioned, tainted by implications and whispers. Her phone buzzed again. Yara this time. "People at school talking about article. Can't handle the stairs. Please don't make me go to therapy today." Before she could respond, Marcus appeared in her doorway, his usual composed demeanor showing cracks of concern. "Yasmin, don't," she cut him off, standing. "Don't say it's nothing. Don't say we'll handle it. This is exactly what I was afraid of." The office had grown quiet, other employees pretending not to watch through glass walls as their CEO and the woman from the news article faced each other. "You've earned everything you've achieved here," Marcus said firmly. "Your technical skills are being questioned because of us," she finished. "My ability, my promotion, even Noah's school placement. They're painting it all as—" She couldn't finish. Janet cleared her throat. "The board meeting starts in 10 minutes, Mr. Owen." Marcus didn't move. "Yasmin, please, let me handle this. Like you handled the rent, the medical bills, the school fees." Her voice cracked. "They're right. Everything in my life now is because of you." "No." He stepped closer, regardless of their audience. "Everything in your life is because of your strength, your determination. I just removed some obstacles." Her phone chimed again, a series of texts from Yara. "Kids sharing article in school group chat. Someone made a meme about us, can't breathe, having panic attack in bathroom. Don't want to end up like Mum." That last message made Yasmin's blood run cold. She grabbed her bag, already moving. "I have to go. Yara needs me." "Let me drive you." "No." The force of her response made everyone in the office jump. "Can't you see? Your help, your involvement in our lives. It's making everything worse." The hurt in his eyes felt like a physical pain, but she pushed through it. "I need to handle this myself, my family, my job, my life. I need to know I can do it alone." "You can," he said softly, "but you don't have to." Another email notification popped up on her screen, the board requesting her presence at the meeting too, to clarify certain relationships and decisions. The double meaning wasn't lost on anyone. "Ms. Foster," Janet said gently, "whatever you decide about the meeting, you've proven yourself here. The whole IT team stands behind you." But Yasmin barely heard her. Her mind was racing through possibilities. Yara having a breakdown at school, Noah facing whispers at his gifted program, her own professional reputation in tatters. "I need to get my sister," she said, her voice distant. "Please tell the board." "Tell them what?" Marcus asked when she trailed off. Yasmin looked at him, really looked, at the man who had changed everything by believing in her, who had shown her son what a father figure could be, who had helped her sister find hope again, the man she was falling in love with, even though she'd fought against it. "Tell them," she straightened her shoulders. "Tell them I'll be back tomorrow, with proof of my qualifications, documentation of my technical experience, and my resignation if they require it. But right now, my sister needs me." She turned to leave, but Marcus's voice stopped her. "And what about what you need?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Through the glass walls, she could see people hurrying past, some obviously discussing the news on their phones. Her carefully constructed new world was fracturing, and she had to choose, fight or flight. Her phone buzzed one final time, a photo from Noah, him at his desk in the gifted program, proudly holding up a perfect math test. His smile was pure joy, untouched by the adult complications swirling around him, and in that moment, Yasmin realized something profound. Running away wouldn't protect her family from pain. It would only teach them to fear love, connection, and growth, just like her mother's depression had taught them to fear vulnerability. "What I need," she said finally, turning back to Marcus, "is to know that everything we've built, my career, the kids' progress, us, isn't going to shatter because some people can't believe a former cleaning lady deserves happiness." Marcus stepped forward. Professional distance be damned. "Then let's prove them wrong. Together." The word echoed in her mind. Together. Not alone, not saved, but partnered. Equal. "I have to get Yara," she said, but her voice was stronger now. "And then we'll face whatever comes next." "We will," he promised. And somehow, even with scandal swirling and careers hanging in the balance, she believed him. Because sometimes the true test of love isn't in the grand gestures or the easy moments, but in standing firm when the world tries to tear you apart. And sometimes the strongest foundations are built not when everything is perfect, but when you choose to fight for what matters, even if it means facing every storm together. The Griffin Tower boardroom felt colder than usual, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a grey view of Boston's skyline. Yasmin sat straight-backed in her chair, her target blazer pressed to perfection, her portfolio of certifications and technical achievements laid out before her like armor. On the screen behind her, a PowerPoint presentation showed her completed projects, the trading floor crisis she'd solved, the security protocols she'd improved, the efficiency systems she'd implemented. 1 month of work that proved her worth beyond any doubt. "Ms. Foster," Board Chairman Richard Davidson adjusted his glasses, "your technical qualifications are impressive. However, Yasmin cut in smoothly, channeling every ounce of strength she'd developed as a single mother. "You're concerned about the appearance of impropriety, about whether my relationship with Marcus, with Mr. Owen, compromises the company." The room fell silent. Marcus, sitting at the far end of the table as required by corporate governance, hadn't taken his eyes off her since she'd walked in. Her phone buzzed silently in her pocket. She knew without looking it would be Yara, waiting at Dr. Rivera's office with Noah. They'd insisted on being nearby during the meeting, a small family united in crisis. "The press coverage has been problematic," another board member offered. Yasmin opened her laptop, turning it to face the board. "I'd like to show you something." On the screen, lines of complex code scrolled past, the solution she'd implemented during the trading crisis. "This is proprietary code I wrote, not from any template, not from any course. Original work that saved the company millions in potential trading losses." She clicked to another screen, and this is my original coding project from the Tech Future program, dated 7 years ago. Note the similar structure, the same innovative approach to problem solving. Janet, sitting in as IT director, leaned forward. The similarities are remarkable. This proves, Yasmin continued, her voice steady, that my abilities existed long before I met Marcus Owen, before I cleaned these offices, before I became someone you'd consider worthy of notice. She stood, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. I won't apologize for falling in love, but I also won't let you reduce my achievements to a scandal or my relationship to office gossip. Her phone buzzed again. This time a text from Noah appeared on her Apple Watch, a gift from Marcus she'd finally accepted. Mom, we believe in you. Yaya's doing much better today. Drawing strength from those words, she continued. My sister is winning her battle with depression. My son is thriving in a program that recognizes his genius. And I am excelling at a job I earned through skill and determination. She turned to face Marcus directly. Yes, Mr. Owen gave me opportunities, but I seized them. I worked for them. I proved myself worthy of them. The timing of your promotion, Davidson began, was based on merit, Janet interrupted. I have documentation of every decision, every evaluation. Yasmin's technical solutions have already saved us more than her annual salary several times over. Marcus started to speak, but Yasmin held up a hand. This was her battle to fight. I understand appearances matter, she acknowledged. So let me be clear. I'm not asking for special treatment. Test me. Evaluate me. Compare my work to any IT professional in this building, but judge me on my merits, not on who I love. The word love hung in the air, the first time she'd said it out loud. Through the glass walls, she could see office workers trying not to stare, could imagine the whispers and tweets already circulating. Her watch showed another text, this time from Yara. Dr. Rivera says Mom would be so proud of us right now, of you, and I am too. Tears threatened, but Yasmin blinked them back. 7 years ago, I took a computer course while pregnant, dreaming of a better future. 3 months ago, I cleaned these offices at night, teaching myself coding from YouTube between shifts. Today, I stand before you as a qualified IT professional who happens to be dating your CEO. She gathered her documents with steady hands. If that's a problem, I'll tender my resignation, but know that you'll be losing an employee based on prejudice, not performance. The boardroom remained silent for a long moment. Finally, Davidson spoke. Ms. Foster, would you and Mr. Owen give us the room to deliberate? In the hallway, Marcus immediately reached for her hand, but Yasmin held back. Wait, she said softly. Whatever they decide, I need you to know something. His dark eyes searched her face, concern evident in every line of his features. I love you, she said simply. Not for what you've given us, but for how you've helped me believe in myself, in possibilities, in love itself. Before he could respond, the boardroom door opened. Davidson gestured them back in, his expression unreadable. Ms. Foster, he began formally, the board has reviewed your qualifications, your performance records, and the circumstances of your employment. Yasmin felt Marcus tense beside her. We find no cause for concern regarding your professional appointment, Davidson continued. Furthermore, while we recommend discretion in workplace interactions, your personal relationship with Mr. Owen does not violate any company policies. Relief flooded through her, but Davidson wasn't finished. However, he added, we would like to suggest one modification to your position. Yasmin's heart stuttered. Sir, we'd like you to head up a new initiative, training and recruitment from non-traditional backgrounds, technical education for employees looking to advance, starting with the cleaning staff. Tears spilled then, but Yasmin didn't try to hide them. I would be honored. Her watch lit up with rapid-fire texts from Yara and Noah, who'd obviously been monitoring the situation through Janet's updates. Yes, Mom. You did it! Can we have celebration hot chocolate? And suddenly, standing in that boardroom with her career intact and her dignity preserved, Yasmin realized something profound. Sometimes the biggest victories aren't just about proving others wrong, but about proving yourself right. Marcus's hand found hers, and this time she held on tight. Because sometimes love isn't about being saved or being the savior. It's about standing together, fighting together, and believing together. And sometimes the most powerful answer to doubt and prejudice isn't anger or retreat, but simply standing firmly in your truth, holding tight to those who believe in you, and showing the world that love and success aren't mutually exclusive gifts. 6 months later, The 47th floor of Griffin Tower looked different in the evening light. Or maybe it was Yasmin who was different, standing in her office, the same corner office where she'd once cleaned floors and fixed a CEO's computer on a fateful night. Her reflection in the window showed a woman transformed, confidence in her posture, purpose in her eyes, and a small smile that spoke of hard-won contentment. Her business attire, no longer from Target but still chosen with careful consideration, suited her as naturally as her old cleaning uniform once had. "Ms. Foster," her assistant poked her head in. "Your 6 o'clock is here, the new training program candidates." Yasmin turned from the window, gathering the materials she'd prepared. "Send them in, please." 5 people filed in, all wearing elite cleaning services uniforms. She recognized that mixture of hope and uncertainty in their eyes. She'd worn it herself not so long ago. "Welcome to the Tech Future Corporate Initiative," she began warmly. "I'm Yasmin Foster, and 6 months ago I was standing exactly where you are now." Her phone lit up with a text from Yara. "Killed my college interview. Dr. Rivera's breathing techniques really helped. Love you." Pride bloomed in her chest. Her sister, now thriving in therapy and managing her depression, had applied to Boston University's computer science program. The same girl who'd once hidden in school bathrooms was now planning her future with confidence. "Mom!" Noah's voice carried through the office as he burst in, still in his advanced mathematics club uniform. "Mr. Peterson says I might be ready for high school math next year." Marcus followed more sedately, carrying Noah's backpack and what looked suspiciously like Celebration hot chocolate cups from their favorite cafe. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, not looking sorry at all. Someone couldn't wait to share his news. The cleaning staff candidates straightened, recognizing the CEO, but Yasmin noticed they relaxed when they saw how naturally Noah ran to her, how easily Marcus set the drinks down and helped straighten the boy's crooked collar. "Actually," Yasmin smiled, "your timing is perfect. Everyone, this is my son Noah, who taught me that mathematics can be magic, and this is Marcus Owen, who believed in second chances and the power of opportunity." She turned back to the candidates. 6 months ago I was working 2 jobs, raising 2 kids alone and dreaming of something more. Today I run IT operations and this training initiative, not because someone handed it to me, but because someone gave me the chance to prove what I could do." Her hand found Marcus's naturally as she continued, "That's what this program offers. Not charity, not handouts, but opportunity. The tools to build your own future." Noah, now settled with his homework at the small desk Yasmin kept in her office for him, piped up, "Mom's really good at teaching. She helped me understand algorithms before anyone in my class." The candidates chuckled, tension breaking. One young woman, barely older than Yara, raised her hand tentatively. "Ms. Foster, I'm a single mom too. My daughter's 3. Is it really possible to—" She gestured vaguely at the office, the view, the life Yasmin had built. "What's your name?" Yasmin asked gently. "Maria." "Maria, 6 months ago I was cleaning this very office at midnight. Now I'm running it. Not because of fairy tales or luck, but because I was given a chance and I worked hard to make it count." Her phone chimed again, a reminder about dinner. They were all expected at Marcus's parents' house, where his mother had finally perfected the fusion of Korean comfort food and American hot chocolate that Noah declared almost as good as Mom's magic recipe. Looking at the eager faces before her, Yasmin felt everything come full circle. The program takes dedication. You'll work your regular jobs, attend evening classes, complete technical certifications. It won't be easy. But you won't be alone, Marcus added, surprising everyone by speaking. This company believes in untapped potential, in second chances, in the power of opportunity combined with determination. Noah looked up from his homework. "Like how Mom helped fix your computer that night." Marcus smiled, the same warm smile that had first shown Yasmin the man behind the CEO title. Exactly like that. The candidates were taking notes now, hope replacing uncertainty in their expressions. Yasmin launched into the program details, explaining schedules, requirements, and opportunities. But part of her mind was already at dinner, where Yara would share her interview stories, Noah would explain his latest mathematical discovery, and Marcus's parents would argue lovingly about whose cultural comfort food better cured a hard day. Later that night, after the candidates left with applications in hand and hope in their hearts, after Noah had fallen asleep on Marcus's office couch surrounded by math worksheets, Yasmin stood again at the window. Marcus joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Proud of you, he murmured. Proud of us, she corrected. All of us. Her phone showed a final text from Yara. Got the grades for early admission. Can we celebrate this weekend? Love you guys. Yasmin leaned back against Marcus, watching their reflection in the window. Behind them, Noah slept peacefully, his homework showing complex equations that would have scared her 6 months ago, but now filled her with understanding and pride. You know, Marcus said softly, that night when my computer crashed, I was working on a proposal about corporate responsibility and community investment. I never finished it. Why not? Because something better came along. Someone who showed me that real change doesn't come from proposals and programs. It comes from believing in people, from giving them not just opportunities, but respect. Yasmin turned in his arms. And love, he agreed, kissing her softly. Always love. Noah stirred on the couch, mumbling something about algorithms in his sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more candidates to train, more barriers to break, more battles to fight. But tonight, in this office where everything began, Yasmin Foster stood complete. Because sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about dramatic rescues or fairy tale endings, but about two people who help each other become their best selves. And sometimes the most powerful magic isn't found in grand gestures or perfect moments, but in the quiet triumph of proving that with love, support, and determination, any destiny can be crossed, any future can be rewritten, and any heart can find its home. 2 years later, the autumn breeze carried the scent of fallen leaves across Boston Common as Yasmin adjusted Noah's tie, a miniature version of Marcus's. At 9 years old, her son had insisted on matching his stepfather for this special occasion, right down to the carefully folded pocket square. "Mum, you're doing it again," Noah complained good-naturedly as she fussed with his collar. "Let her fuss," Marcus laughed, looking handsome in his charcoal suit. "It's a big day." And it was. The banner across Griffin Tower's entrance read, Tech Future Corporate Initiative, 2nd Anniversary Celebration and Graduation Ceremony. Below it, crowds gathered, employees, families, and most importantly, the newest graduating class of the program Yasmin had built from her own experience. Her phone buzzed with an incoming FaceTime call from Yara, now a sophomore at Boston University. Her sister's face appeared, bright with excitement despite the early hour in her dorm room. "I'm on my way," Yara exclaimed. "Just finished my morning classes. Save me a seat next to Maria and her daughter." Yasmin smiled, remembering the young single mother from that first class of candidates. Maria now ran the IT help desk, her daughter thriving in the same gifted program that had changed Noah's life. "Don't forget Mum's necklace," Yara added softly. "It's perfect for today." Yasmin touched the delicate chain around her neck, their mother's favorite piece of jewelry, now a symbol of how far they'd come from those dark days of depression and loss. Dr. Rivera had helped Yara frame it perfectly during one of their final therapy sessions. Mum's story didn't end with goodbye. It continued through the strength she gave us. The ceremony space filled quickly. 50 graduates in business attire, former cleaning staff, security guards, maintenance workers, all now certified IT professionals. Their families beamed with pride, many holding signs and flowers. In the front row, Marcus's parents sat with Noah, his mother dabbing her eyes already. Beside them, Janet from IT had come out of retirement specially for this day, wearing the Mentor of the Year pin Yasmin's students had given her. "Ready?" Marcus squeezed her hand as she prepared to take the stage. Yasmin looked out at the crowd. 2 years ago, she'd stood in this same building in a cleaning uniform, dreaming of something more. Now, she stepped to the podium, her confidence as natural as breathing. "Welcome, everyone. 2 years ago, a computer crashed and a life changed." The ceremony flowed perfectly. Graduates received their certificates, shared their stories, cried happy tears. Maria's little girl presented Yasmin with a hand-drawn card showing stick figures at computers, all wearing superhero capes. When the formal proceedings ended, families mingled over catered refreshments, including, of course, hot chocolate with the magic recipe Yasmin had shared with the hotel's chef. "Mrs. Owen?" One of the graduates approached hesitantly. "Still Ms. Foster professionally," Yasmin corrected gently, though her wedding ring caught the light as she spoke. "But please, call me Yasmin. Thank you, not just for the program, but for showing us it's possible. All of it." Yara arrived then, wrapping Yasmin in a fierce hug before pulling out her phone to show off her latest coding project. Noah immediately launched into an explanation of how her algorithm could be improved, making everyone laugh. Marcus watched his family with quiet joy, remembering that desperate night with a crashed computer and an approaching deadline. "Worth every crisis," he murmured. "What was that?" Yasmin asked. "Just thinking how some computer problems turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to you." Later that evening, they gathered at their home, a comfortable townhouse halfway between Griffin Tower and Noah's school. Not too luxurious, but full of warmth and life. Photos lined the walls: Yara's high school graduation, Noah's math competition victories, the intimate wedding ceremony, where they'd all shared cups of hot chocolate instead of champagne. Yasmin stood in the kitchen, watching through the window as Marcus helped Noah set up his new telescope in the backyard. Yara sat on the deck working on her coding assignment, occasionally calling out questions that Noah surprisingly could answer. Her phone showed a text from Maria. "My daughter got into the gifted program. Thank you for blazing the trail." Looking at her blended, beautiful family, Yasmin thought about destiny and choices, about cleaning floors and writing code, about love that transforms but never diminishes who you are. She touched her mother's necklace, then her wedding ring, then the newest addition, a small pendant Marcus had given her at the ceremony, engraved with a simple line of code that meant, "Create new beginning." The doorbell rang, their regular Sunday dinner guests arriving. Marcus's parents came bearing Korean dishes, while Janet followed with her famous apple pie. The house filled with laughter, multiple languages, and the smell of fusion comfort food. As they gathered around the table, Noah proudly showing off his latest mathematical proof, Yara discussing her summer internship plans, and Marcus's mother teaching Yasmin another secret recipe, Yasmin felt the completeness of her journey. Because sometimes the most beautiful endings aren't endings at all, but beginnings written in infinite loops of love and possibility. And sometimes the greatest achievement isn't in reaching a destination, but in creating a path for others to follow, lighting the way with hope, determination, and maybe just a touch of hot chocolate magic. In the end, every crossed destiny is just the start of a new algorithm, calculating infinite possibilities for those brave enough to believe in second chances, strong enough to fight for their dreams, and wise enough to know that love, pure, supportive, respectful love, is the most powerful code of all. Final author's note. Dear readers, this story celebrates not just romance, but the power of believing in yourself and others. It's about family, both born and chosen, and the courage to accept love in all its forms. What dreams are you holding back from? What chances are you afraid to take? Remember Yasmin's journey, and know that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with a simple choice to believe in possibilities. Your story matters. Your dreams matter. And yes, your participation in this channel matters too. Please share your thoughts, your stories, and your own crossed destinies in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.